Chapter 1973. The battle between Enlil and the heavenly earth god was simply too powerful. No one below the Tao integration stage was able to see what was going on. Even Tao integration stage, super mighty figures were able to see what was going on. They could see Enlil's hand being blasted apart over and over again, only to quickly regenerate within a second before continuing to battle the heavenly earth god with no fear of death. Hongdo was even more dumbstruck. Enlil was on par with the heavenly earth god. The heavenly earth god was one of the most powerful beings in the entire heavenly human tribe. Normal heavenly gods couldn't compare to him, but Enlil was able to hold his own against him. Was this world already this bizarre? The three heavenly disciple candidates, the battling Buddha, Yun Minjing, and Michael, were all dumbstruck. They had thought that Enlil was only an ordinary heavenly disciple who was about as powerful as the ancient dragon empress, or at most a little more powerful. But now, it looked like Enlil was on a completely different level from them. Enlil's heaven-crushing technique was more powerful than anything they had ever seen. Not only that, but after combining the heaven-crushing technique with some kind of special power, the power it unleashed was even more earth-shattering. No wonder Chun Chun and Cyril insisted on leaving the position of third heavenly disciple to Enlil. Meanwhile, at the location where Su Xiaolan was battling, as long as my heart remains, my body exists forever. The heavenly emotion goddess voice reverberated through the air, and the two halves of the heavenly emotion goddess body reformed. Essential power, heaven-crushing god-slaying technique. Little Xiaolan spread open her dazzling vermilion bird wings, and as she flapped her wings, she closed the distance between them at an incredible speed. She reached the heavenly emotion goddess almost in the blink of an eye before plunging her dragon sparrow sword into the heavenly emotion goddess body again. Boom! A crimson sword intent pierced through the air for over 1,000 kilometers, as if the crimson river of hell had parted the heavens. The heavenly emotion goddess face was filled with despair. She had been insta-killed as soon as she revived. What was going on? Couldn't she just fight normally? This was the 6th time she had been slain. The divine halo above her head was already riddled with cracks, and it was about to collapse. As long as my heart remains, my body exists forever. The heavenly emotion goddess's feeble voice sounded. Origin power. Heaven-shattering, God-punishing. Rumble. The heavenly emotion goddess exploded again. Little Xiaolan panted lightly as she held her dragon sparrow sword, but a cold light flashed through her eyes. Faster, faster. Enlil had fought for so much time for her, she couldn't waste it. She was going to kill the heavenly emotion goddess today. As long as my heart remains, my body, origin power, heavenly punishment. Little Xiaolan raised her dragon sparrow sword high into the air and waited for the heavenly emotion goddess to revive. The heavenly emotion goddess had a mental breakdown. F***CK. I haven't even resurrected yet, and you're already unleashing your trump card? I'm a mighty heavenly god. Did I revive just to eat your trump card? The heavenly emotion goddess was very indignant and humiliated. My body is eternal. Heaven-shattering, God-slaying. Rumble. The heavenly emotion goddess had only just materialized her body when the dragon sparrow sword punctured her body, upon which the scorching vermilion bird essential power incinerated her body into nothingness. All of the enemies and allies on the battlefield were shocked and couldn't help but sympathize with the heavenly god who had been alive for less than a second. This was way too tragic. Being insta-killed once was not enough. She was going to be insta-killed countless times. She was a mighty boss, but she was being killed by little Xiaolan. All of them wanted to report little Xiaolan to the heavenly god. As long as my heart remains, my body, little Xiaolan raised her dragon sparrow, sword high into the air. Origin power, heavenly punishment, my body, wah. Her sobbing voice reverberated through the air. Little Xiaolan. All of the onlookers. What the F***CK? Was she crying for being slaughtered? All of a sudden, countless terrifying projections appeared in the air. There were evil ghosts, bloodthirsty Shurass, fiend celestial Armageddon. All of the projections enshrouded Su Xiaolan as terrifying auras enshrouded her. Roar. I'll kill you. I'll kill you even if I have to give up everything. One projection after another materialized before pouncing towards Su Xiaolan in a frenzy. Little Xiaolan's petite body remained unscathed amid the storm, but a faint smile appeared on her face. Are you going to stake everything on this one attack? That means you've reached your limit. Her eyes suddenly turned a vibrant red. There was a hint of seductive charm in her pure and holy eyes, and a hint of pride and aloofness in her transcendent eyes. God-slaying sword. Little Xiaolan spoke in an indifferent voice, and her crimson vermilion bird essential power expanded to take on the form of a vermilion bird. She then flapped her wings, and all of the projections were reduced to nothingness by her essential power. The heavenly emotion goddess expression was still frozen on her face when Su Xiaolan appeared before her, and her dragon sparrow sword plunged viciously into her chest before puncturing through her body. You're dead. Little Xiaolan stared at the heavenly emotion goddess with her crimson eyes. Air! The heavenly emotion goddess opened her mouth, only to find that she was unable to utter a single word. The scorching vermilion bird essential power flames engulfed her slender body. Crack! A crisp crack erupted as her divine halo was completely pulverized. Heavenly emotion goddess. No! All of the heavenly human tribe soldiers were grief-stricken upon seeing this. Every single heavenly deity had a profound meaning to them. They were what they pursued and believed in. But now a heavenly deity actually died on the battlefield, dying miserably under the witness of millions upon millions of soldiers. This was an extremely great blow to them. The heavenly emotion goddess had been incinerated into nothingness. Only a burst of invisible power returned to the heavenly Tao. The Kingdom of the Nine States United Army's morale was greatly boosted, and they charged forward with even more fearlessness. What was bad *SS? What a F King bad *SS was that when a paramount heavenly god appeared and threatened to save the heavenly gods, they were still able to slay the heavenly gods right before their very eyes. This was the equivalent of slapping the paramount heavenly gods in the face. What a hearty, heart-stirring feeling. With the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army still scared now. Even the heavenly earth god couldn't do anything to Enlin and Su Xiaolan. So what do they have to be scared of? Thus, the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army became extremely courageous, while the heavenly human tribe United Army retreated in an even more disheveled manner. Countless enemy soldiers were being slain with every passing second. The heavenly earth god's expression darkened upon seeing the heavenly emotion goddess being slain. He no longer exchanged blows with Enlin. Instead, he took one of Enlin's punches head-on before unleashing a punch toward Enlin's heart. This punch was far too fast, and Enlin had no time to defend himself. The boundless power behind the punch caved in Enlin's chest, and his back bulged before exploding into a bloody hole. PFFF. Enlin threw up a mouthful of blood as he flew through the air. The heavenly earth god's body also swayed violently, and it was impossible to determine his injuries. He took an indifferent glance at Enlin before disappearing into the ground. Enlin lay on the ground and looked at the fleeing heavenly gods. He listened to the battle cries around him, and a joyful smile appeared on his face. They had won this battle. They had secured a resounding victory. Chapter 1974. 1 hour later, the battle drew to a conclusion. The Kingdom of the Nine States United Army had sacrificed around 10 million soldiers in this battle, but they had slain over 20 million enemies. This had to do with their high morale, as well as the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army's disheveled retreat, as well as the 9 vermilion birds. Both sides had lost the Tao integration stage, super mighty figure. However, the heavenly emotion goddess had fallen, and that was the most significant accomplishment. The heavenly temperature god and the heavenly slaughter god had escaped. No one could catch them anymore. All in all, in this battle, the coalition army of the 9 states had achieved a perfect victory, sweeping away the atmosphere of despair from before. In particular, their allies were still able to slay a heavenly god despite the fact that even the heavenly earth god had been mobilized. To them, this was extremely exciting. If the heavenly earth god hadn't stepped in, the haters would probably have said, "What's there to be happy about?" The enemy boss hadn't even appeared yet, so no matter how many victories they won now, the enemy was going to come back sooner or later. However, the heavenly earth god had stepped in to stop Enlin and the others from killing a heavenly god. But Enlin and Su Xiaolan were still able to hold off the heavenly earth god while the heavenly earth god was slain by the other. How were they supposed to retort now? There was no way to retort. The heavenly earth god's face had been slapped swollen. Where else could the haters go? Without a doubt, this was a perfect victory. All of the tribes were celebrating this victory in a peculiar realm, within an intricate and antiquated house. The woman wore a divine robe and had a fresh and elegant appearance, and she was ceaselessly fiddling with a Tao wheel. Your Majesty, I have important news to report." A woman with a white snake tail had a flushed blush on her cheeks, and her eyes were filled with scorching light. "Little Bai, why are you in such a hurry?" the woman asked with a gentle expression. The snake woman in a black dress leaned against the door frame. "You're probably reporting about the battle between the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army and the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army, right? We're going to the east to provide reinforcements. So what's the big deal?" White Spirit Snake immediately shook her head. "It's different this time." "How so? Did a Tao integration stage, super mighty figure die?" Black Spirit Snake's brows perked up slightly. "The heavenly emotion goddess is dead," White Spirit Snake replied. Black Spirit Snake's expression shifted upon hearing this. "This is indeed a big deal. And he killed the heavenly emotion goddess right in front of the heavenly earth god." White Spirit Snake was extremely excited. Black Spirit Snake was astonished. Goddess Nua also stopped fiddling with the Tao wheel, and she was momentarily stunned. Obviously, this matter had also exceeded her expectations. "Is it Enlin and Su Xiaolan?" Goddess Nua asked. "Yes." White Spirit Snake nodded with excitement. Enlin held off the heavenly earth god, while Su Xiaolan slew the heavenly emotion goddess. Goddess Nua smiled. "You've done well. What a pleasant surprise." Black Spirit Snake was dumbstruck. Stall the heavenly earth god. Was Enlin already that heaven-defying? In the eastern region of the Tai Chu continent, Dawn City, the celestial Dharch hung up the voice transmission before looking up into the sky with a blank expression. After a short while, he turned to Yiling, Xiao Zhe, and Xiao Tu with a complex expression on his face, all of whom had also received the news. They were clearly just being humble. At the West Sea Alliance, Lan Xiaoni looked at the latest news, and a joyful smile appeared on her face. Big Boss Enlin really is the most powerful. No matter where he goes, he's always the most dazzling presence. "Wah, what do I do?" Lan Xiaoni pursed her lips as her heart raced. "I'm about to become your fangirl. When are you coming to the West Sea?" "The heavenly sea god has already appeared. I really want to see you." The mermaid princess murmur sounded within the palace with indescribable longing. News of this battle spread like wildfire among all of the major powers. News of this quickly spread to the news media, upon which the entire Tai Chu continent erupted into an uproar. Enlin had appeared out of thin air and was on par with the heavenly earth god. This news shocked all of the living beings present. What was going on? Enlin was only able to hold his own against normal heavenly gods not long ago, but he was now able to hold his own against paramount heavenly gods? What the F***CK was going on? Too many living beings were in complete disbelief. However, this did not slow down Enlin's progress in the slightest. That's right, Enlin had once again dominated all of the headlines on the Tai Chu continent. His fame once again shook the continent. Under the admiration and awe of countless living beings, this white-robed cultivator from the east was further deified. At the same time, Su Xiaolan's killing of the heavenly emotion goddess was only second to Enlin in terms of fame, and she was the subject of much heated discussion. The fact that she had been revered as the great Empress Vermilion Bird by the 9-Dao integration stage Vermilion Birds created a massive stir across the entire continent. The title of the Divine Phoenix Divine Maiden was now fully deserved. Other people's Emperor Fu Tian and Emperor Ri Tian were all fake. Why don't you try to defy the heavens and sun the heavens? However, the Divine Phoenix Divine Maiden was the real vermilion bird, the real Great Empress. Her Tao title was the Divine Phoenix Divine Maiden. Not only was Su Xiaolan the goddess of the Kingdom of the Nine States, but she was also quickly becoming the goddess of the entire Tai Chu continent. Her halo was so bright that normal female cultivators didn't even dare to look her in the eyes. After witnessing the terrifying power displayed by Lin and Su Xiaolan, many of the higher-ups of the major powers had declared the 4-9 Immortals sect to be the #1 sect in the Kingdom of the Nine States. They were even more powerful than the Celestial Court. Not only was this acknowledged by all of the major powers, but it was also acknowledged by all of the living beings. The leader of the 5 great sects, the 4-9 Immortal sect, had officially overtaken the Celestial Court and become the #1 sect in the Kingdom of the Nine States. Some of the residents of the Kingdom of the Nine States sighed with emotion upon seeing this. How many tens of thousands of years had it been since the Celestial Court's position had been shaken? How long had the 4-9 Immortal sect only risen to prominence? They had only been dead for over 100 years, but they had miraculously turned the tables? Everyone sighed with emotion, but they were also genuinely elated. This sect had created far too many miracles and had always been the main force in the war against the heavenly human tribe. How many things had the 4-9 Immortal sect done for itinerant cultivators? How many enemies had it slain? How many disciples and elders had it sacrificed? Its appearance represented the revival and counterattack of a human race. It represented that the human race could create countless possibilities, and it brought hope to the human race. Since it had done all of this, the status it had now was fully deserved. Even the immortals of the Celestial Court were momentarily dazed upon hearing this news before smiling and acknowledging the 4-9 Immortal sect status. Some filthy rich immortals even boasted to their friends that they had tasted sect leader and Lin's cooking. Some filthy rich immortals even retorted. Not only had they tasted sect leader and Lin's cooking, but they had also tasted the Divine Phoenix Maiden's cooking. Everyone burst into raucous laughter upon hearing this. Come to think of it, this chef-god couple had a very deep history with the Celestial Court. All of the immortals could still recall the two of them back then. Before they knew it, a small sapling had grown into a massive tree that obscured the entire sky. That's right. Who would have thought that the couple who had worked so hard to make a living in the Celestial Court would become mighty figures whose names resounded throughout the entire Tai Chu continent? One day later, the Celestial Court issued a statement to the entire continent, congratulating the 4-9 Immortal sect for achieving yet another glorious victory. They hoped that the 4-9 Immortal sect would lead the Kingdom of the Nine States and the human race to victory. The 4-9 Immortal sect had officially become the #1 sect in the Kingdom of the Nine States. Chapter 1975. On the central front of the Tai Chu continent, the main city of the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army, Yutong City. The moon was as bright as water, and the sea of stars was as vast as a sea, under the beautiful night sky. A courtyard with a pleasant view. And Lin looked at his handsome figure in the newspaper, and he couldn't help but bask in self-admiration. So handsome, he sighed with emotion. Little Xiaolan sipped some hot tea in an unhurried manner. She was very small, but she was making tea in an extremely smooth and fluid manner, giving her a peculiar sense of beauty. All right, you've already said it over a dozen times. I know you're handsome, all right? Little Xiaolan rolled her eyes at the sight of Enlin's expression. Little Xiaolan, do you like me? Enlin suddenly asked. Huh? Little Xiaolan's hand, that was holding the teacup, faltered slightly, and a blush appeared on her face. Of course I like it. Isn't that obvious? Me too. Enlin smiled. Little Xiaolan was a little embarrassed. I know you like me. I also like myself, Enlin replied. Little Xiaolan. Enlin looked at the man in the white robe in the newspaper and sighed with emotion. He's so handsome, Little Xiaolan. Hee hee. The battle on the central front settled down for the time being. The Heavenly Human Tribe United Army seemed to be wary of Enlin and Su Xiaolan, and they didn't attack as aggressively as before. At most, they sent some powerful beings to scout out the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army. The two sides entered a stalemate. All of the higher-ups on the Central Front elected Enlin as their paramount leader. Enlin had initially wanted to decline in a roundabout manner, but the battling Buddha, Yin Minjing, Michael, and Demon Lord Deka had all unanimously recommended him as their paramount leader. They expressed that no one was more suitable for this position than him, and they wouldn't accept any other powerful beings as their leader. Under the pressure of all of the powerful beings present, Enlin could only reluctantly accept this position and become the paramount leader of the heaven-crushing United Army on the Central Front. After that, he continued to sit in his lounge chair and indulge in his own self-satisfaction as he read his newspaper. Just like the battling Buddha and Demon Lord Deka, he was the type of person who would fight. His battle plan was to charge forward recklessly. Therefore, the task of military strategy and deployment of various forces fell to Yin Minjing and Mi Jialai. Although Enlin had taken over the position of the highest leader of the central line of battle, he still ate and drank as he should, and it did not affect his current leisure at all. Enlin, what was it like battling the heavenly earth god? Would you have been able to win in a battle to the death? Su Xiaolan slowly picked up the teacup and sipped the fragrant, hot, immortal tea. She narrowed her beautiful eyes and asked softly, When I fought him, I always felt that I was so small. Enlin recalled the feeling he had during the battle. This is a feeling caused by the force of his own attribute. The earth, for ordinary living beings, represents the nurturing of all things and is endless. It is an extremely great thing, and it can also be said to be the pinnacle of matter. The Tai Chu continent is boundlessly vast, and there are countless planets in the realm of stars. All of these things are essentially Earth. No matter what kind of living being it is, it will always feel small and insignificant in the face of an existence that represents all matter. And Lin heaped praise upon the heavenly earth god before suddenly changing the subject. However, it actually has a limit. Or rather, the heavenly earth god does have a limit. The heavenly earth god is being restricted by the will of the heavenly Tao, so he can only unleash very little power. This gives me an opening. After fusing the power of the 5 elements with the power of heaven crushing, I can break through his defenses. Furthermore, I still have many trump cards that I haven't used yet, so I have at least a 10% chance of winning in a battle to the death. Little Xiaolan's lips twitched upon hearing this. You've prepared for so long, but you only have a 10% chance of winning in the end. Don't underestimate paramount heavenly gods. They are terrifyingly powerful. I tried to bite a chunk of flesh off the heavenly earth god's body, but I was unable to do so. Why do you want to bite his flesh? I want to see what the flesh of a paramount heavenly god tastes like. You'll become more powerful if you eat it, right? Little Xiaolan, you're so smart. How am I supposed to respond to that? Next time, I'll be responsible for cutting the flesh off, and you'll be responsible for eating it. Little Xiaolan patted her chest in a domineering manner. Enlin was stunned by the sight of this green-clothed girl. The moonlight shone down on the girl's immature and flawless face, which glowed with a mesmerizing jade-like luster. "Give me a kiss, Little Xiaolan," Enlin said. Little Xiaolan was a little hesitant. "Then kiss my cheek," Enlin replied with a smile. Soon, Enlin detected a fragrant scent wafting toward him. Enlin kissed Little Xiaolan's cheek in return, and a blush appeared on her cheeks. Enlin was extremely tempted by this. Little Xiaolan's body had become smaller, but why did it seem like she had also become more shy? In the past, she wouldn't even panic when kissing him. Just as he was thinking this, his hand was suddenly gripped by a pair of soft, warm hands. Enlin raised his head to discover that Little Xiaolan was looking at him with a serious expression on her face. "Enlin, I want to grow up quickly so I can marry you." Little Xiaolan's pink lips parted as she spoke. Her pleasant voice reverberated by Enlin's ears, sending ripples through his heart. Little Xiaolan had confessed to him What a special feeling. Why did he feel like he was a child bride? And Lin felt like a door to a whole new world was slowly opening before him. Little Xiaolan, when are you going to grow up? And Lin asked with a hint of anticipation in his eyes. I don't know. When I completely grow up will most likely be when the vermilion bird heart essence is completely repaired and completely fuses with me. Little Xiaolan supported her chin with a contemplative expression. Little Xiaolan was extremely adorable when she was deep in thought, and Lin couldn't help but rub little Xiaolan's soft cheeks. Little Xiaolan's beauty wasn't to the point where she could mesmerize all living beings, but her cheeks were extraordinarily smooth to the touch. Little Xiaolan slapped Lin's hand away with a disdainful expression. If you want to rub your face, go find Little Xie. Little Xie will tell me to piss off, and Lin replied. Little Xiaolan, piss off, and Lin blinked. All right. The moon was very beautiful. The two of them chatted for a long time before going back to rest late at night. The first rays of dawn appeared, and Lin was meditating. The door to his room was gently pushed open. Immediately afterward, a familiar fragrance wafted through the air. Here's a good morning kiss. A sweet, pleasant voice sounded, and Lin opened his eyes, and his expression gradually became sluggish. A beautiful and pure young girl was blinking her limpid autumn eyes, looking at him with a sweet smile. She wore a snowy white dress, and her figure was tall and slender. Her long, black hair fell to her waist, and her translucent skin glowed like ivory under the morning light. Her smile was brimming with youthfulness. The young woman was very pleased with herself upon seeing Lin's astonished expression, and a mischievous smile appeared on her face. 15-year-old Xiaolan, good morning to you. Her voice was as pleasant and light as the most beautiful heavenly music. Thump! And Lin's heart convulsed. Crap, this was the feeling of falling in love. Chapter 1976. And Lin felt like there was a celestial maiden standing before him. She had a flawless figure, flawless features, and a pair of eyes that were as clear as a spring. She was peerlessly beautiful, pure, and flawless. The aura of youth wafted toward him. And Lin, a man in his 20s, was tempted. She was full of vigor and invincibility. Look at you. Do you really have to be like this? Have you never seen a beautiful woman before? Su Xiaolan couldn't help but grumble at Lin's scorching gaze. And Lin blushed as he coughed dryly. According to the customs of the Kingdom of the Nine States, a 15-year-old girl should be able to get married, right? Su Xiaolan faltered slightly before a blush appeared on her face. Tui, pervert. Su Xiaolan grumbled before turning to leave. Hey, don't go. You don't have to get married. And Lin immediately gave chase. Let's be friends. Within the white nectar sea, at the summit of the divine tree, a woman with long green hair plucked a vibrant flower that was imbued with divine power and placed it in her mouth before chewing lightly. Delicious. A little bird flew to her side before speaking in a crisp voice. Life, Niwa has already progressed to the third stage of her mending of the heavens. Will we run out of time? If she succeeds, all of us heavenly gods will perish. A faint smile appeared on the woman's face as she shook her head. This woman was none other than one of the 6 paramount heavenly gods, the heavenly life goddess. Don't panic. Niwa has a prerequisite for her mending of the heavens, and she has no chance of accomplishing it now. Otherwise, earth and light would have already lost their patience. The heavenly life goddess smiled. The little bird nodded, then looked at the giant colored egg hanging with countless vines under a tree branch and asked curiously, "What are you making?" The woman stroked the colorful eggshell, and even the little bird was struck by an indescribable sense of fear. This is the perfect life form. It is my masterpiece. The heavenly life goddess smiled. I'm really looking forward to its birth. What will it look like? How powerful will it be? Will it be able to sweep away all obstacles before us? Little bird said in a deep voice. Don't create something that you can't control. The heavenly life god's orange eyes lit up, and a faint smile appeared on her face. The essence of life has always been uncontrollable. Otherwise, where do you think the transcendent beings came from? Life represents infinite possibilities. Even if I created an ant, it would still be uncontrollable. The little bird was silent for a moment before saying, "The probability is different." The heavenly life goddess shook her head. "The probability is different, but the meaning is the same." "I don't understand," the little bird said. The heavenly life goddess tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and looked up at the starry sky before spreading open her slender arms with a smile on her face. "They all represent reality and hope. They're the most beautiful things in the world. Since the symbolism is the same, why not create ants instead of perfect life forms?" The little bird asked, "Are you stupid? How am I supposed to fight and win by creating ants?" The heavenly life goddess snapped, "Little bird, wait. Why do I feel like I've stumbled into a dead end?" However, Enlin's combat prowess is already comparable to the heavenly earth god in his normal state, and he killed the heavenly emotion goddess right in front of the heavenly earth god. Haha, even I feel bad for the heavenly earth god. I'm really looking forward to when they fight to the death. The heavenly life goddess's eyes were filled with anticipation. His combat prowess is indeed very powerful. It's a pleasant surprise. The little bird nodded. "By the way, how is the heavenly sea god doing? Did he really agree to join us?" The heavenly life goddess asked. The little bird chirped, "That's right. He's hiding his true strength very well. But he is indeed leaning toward us and has agreed to cooperate with us to destroy light and earth." Hee hee. The heavenly life goddess chuckled. "Stupid light and earth. They don't even know which side the heavenly sea is leaning toward. I'm really looking forward to seeing their expressions when they discover that the heavenly sea has betrayed them." The heavenly sea is an out-and-out destroyer. He believes that the ocean can nurture and reproduce everything, and he looks down on all living beings on the Tai-Chu continent. The little bird said in an indifferent voice, "That's the way it should be. This false world must be restarted. All life forms must be purified in order to usher in a new dawn." The heavenly life goddess spoke in a firm voice. Heavenly sea, when did he say he's going to act? I can't wait any longer." The woman was itching to go. "There's no hurry. He said he's going to act when the final battle begins," the little bird replied. The woman stroked the huge, colorful egg, and a hint of a smile appeared on her face. "Just wait a little longer. You'll be able to come out very soon." And Lynn was currently sitting with a young woman under the moonlight. Young Orchid was at the age where she was experiencing her first awakening of love. Her performance could be said to be very inexperienced, and even in Lynn's teasing would cause a faint blush to appear on her face. And Lynn was actually quite perplexed. He had once asked her if she had only become younger in appearance, but why had her personality become like young Orchid as well? Su Xiaolan replied with a blush on her face. This was the result of nature, and Enlin was completely baffled by her explanation. However, this wasn't a big issue. To put it more accurately, he really liked Enlin. Enlin took young Orchid with him to admire all of the flowers in Yutong City and take her to eat all of the delicious food in the city. My God, look over there. Who is Enlin shopping with? They're holding hands and walking into the White Jade Seafood Restaurant. Groups of light-winged clan female students on the streets whispered to each other. Wow, that girl is so beautiful. She's even more beautiful than our archangel. Is that the point? What about our divine phoenix maiden? Isn't Lin cheating on Big Sister Xiaolan? A light-winged clan female student asked. Big Sister Xiaolan has become a lowly. It's not a bad idea for Big Boss and Lin to interact with other female students. Some of the female students were quite open-minded. The Lightwing clan were all superstars, and they loved to gossip about celebrities. In their eyes, Enlin was the biggest celebrity, and the gossip about him could be described as earth-shattering. Just as all of the female cultivators were in a frenzy of gossip, news of Enlin cheating on Xiaolan spread like wildfire in the Lightwing clan's inner circle. Finally, this news reached the ears of the 6 vermilion bird sages. Within the seafood restaurant, Su Xiaolan and Enlin were currently enjoying the seafood delicacies as they chatted merrily with one another. A voice transmission talisman suddenly flashed. Young Orchid picked up the voice transmission talisman, upon which Vermilion Bird Nan Lee's enraged voice sounded. Great Empress Vermilion Bird, you've been cheated on by Lin. Vermilion Bird Nan Lee was enraged. Su Xiaolan. And Lin was eating a delicious prawn when the prawn skin fell off the table. Young Orchid's face convulsed slightly, but she still maintained her composure. What is it? Tell me slowly. How did I get cheated on by Lin? Someone discovered that Lin went shopping with an extremely beautiful young woman in a white dress today. Several light-wing clan female students witnessed this. Vermilion Bird Nan Lee was enraged. Su Xiaolan and Lin, that young woman, is around 168 meters tall, has waist-length hair, a red jade hairpin, and a crimson bracelet on her wrist. Su Xiaolan was speechless. That seems to be the case. Do you want us to secretly burn her? Vermilion Bird Nan Lee was filled with righteous indignation. Su Xiaolan's lips twitched. She suddenly felt like this was absurd. F***CK. In this day and age, anything could happen. I've cheated on myself. Chapter 1977. Great Empress Vermilion Bird, just give the command, and we'll burn that woman. Lowly trash like her deserves to be purified by holy flames. Vermilion Bird Nan Lee roared with rage. PFFF. And Lin couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of spicy crayfish. Teenage Xiaolan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Was he scolding her right in front of her and threatening to burn her? What kind of expression was she putting on when she had such a loyal C** in T? All right, let's stop here. Teenage Xiaolan snapped. Why do we have to stop? You can't just give in. Otherwise, you'll be cuckolded even more times. Vermilion Bird Nan Lee spoke with a pained expression. I'm the woman in the white dress you're talking about. Teenage Xiaolan chuckled coldly. What? Vermilion Bird Nan Lee stuttered as if it had received an extremely heavy blow. Slap. Teenage Xiaolan ended the voice transmission, and Lin couldn't help but burst into laughter at the sight of the enraged teenage Xiaolan. What are you laughing at? Teenage Xiaolan glared at Lin as she pursed her lips. Don't be angry. The misunderstanding has been resolved. Let's eat seafood. And Lin smiled as he placed some food on a teenage Xiaolan's plate. Su Xiaolan was now in her youthful form, and her beauty was tinged with a hint of playfulness and liveliness. She was very different from her Lolita appearance in the past, so it was no wonder that people would mistake her for her. Who would have thought that a Lolita would turn out to be a teenage Xiaolan? And Lin and Su Xiaolan continued to live happily ever after. Vermilion Bird Nan Lee personally stepped forward to clarify the rumors and declare that the beautiful woman in the white dress was their great Empress Vermilion Bird. This created quite a stir in Yutong City. Of course, these things did not affect the two protagonists at all. They continued to play and eat as they should, like an immortal couple, very happy and happy. They didn't have to fight, so they could live happily. This was their attitude. Their divine sense could encompass an area with a radius of over 5,000 kilometers. This was the best type of human-shaped surveillance platform. No matter what their enemies were planning to do, they could accurately detect them. Skirmishes were completely meaningless now. The next battle was very likely to be the decisive battle. What to do before the final battle? Of course, it was to adjust his state. That was what Lin and Su Xiaolan did. And Lin held Maidenland's small hand. Her hand is so smooth and tender. After walking for a while, he couldn't help but hug Maidenland's slender waist. Not only was her waist very thin, but it was also very elastic. Not only was it warm, but it also had a faint fragrance. And Lin danced with joy, and then was patted lightly by Maidenland. Her clear eyes glared at the man beside her with a warning look. And Lin immediately became obedient. Actually, it's not bad now. One must know when to be content. Happy days always pass quickly. Unknowingly, 3 beautiful days had passed. The prismatic thumb-sized crystal that Lin carried with him suddenly lit up. He was surprised at first, but then he laughed. There was finally news from the Heavenly Sea God. This crystal was the Heavenly Sea God's heart clone. Using it to communicate could avoid detection from the paramount heavenly gods, and it was a top-secret method of communication. And Lin immediately injected his consciousness into the prismatic crystal. "Mr. Lin, sorry to keep you waiting." A boundless voice sounded in his mind. "Mr. Sea God, you didn't keep me waiting. You even appeared on the Tai Chu continent before our agreed time." And Lin transmitted his voice to the heavenly sea god. "I don't need to explain this to you." The heavenly sea god said, "Even though I came out of seclusion early, I didn't harm anyone on our side." And Lin's lips twitched. "Then what's going on with the various natural disasters in the West Sea? Those are all extravagant displays. If I don't do something like that, the other paramount heavenly gods will become suspicious of me," the heavenly sea god said in a resigned voice. And Lin thought about it for a moment. It really did seem like extravagant displays were necessary for a boss to make an appearance. This was a convention. When did such a F***up convention start? And Lin was still very displeased with the heavenly sea god's actions, but he knew that this was not the time to be bickering about these things. There were more important things that he had to take care of. "The reason why I descended early is because Nuwa's mending of the heavens has reached the 3rd stage, and the heavenly Tao barrier is becoming more and more solid. If I don't descend to the Tai Chu continent now, I'm afraid I won't be able to do so anymore." The heavenly sea god sighed, and Lin's expression shifted slightly. "What's the 3rd stage of mending the heavens? Don't you know, Nuwa? You don't even know this?" The heavenly sea god was a little surprised. I didn't ask." An awkward expression appeared on Lin's face. "She didn't tell you either?" The heavenly sea god was shocked, and Lin heaved a faint sigh. "She only told me about this after I joined the heaven-mending sect." The heavenly sea god immediately replied, "Then join. But I don't want to be bound by any power, and I don't want to do things that I don't want to do. I feel like it's a trap." And Lin voiced his thoughts. "Are you stupid?" The heavenly sea god was exasperated. "Join and enjoy your power first. As for whether or not you want to fulfill your obligations, that's all up to you. You're not weak anymore. So who can force you to do something if you don't want to? If worst comes to worst, you can just join a power and get a free meal before leaving. What's so difficult about that?" And Lin's mouth gaped open in astonishment. How could he be so shameless? He couldn't believe that this was coming from the heavenly sea god's mouth. He was a paramount heavenly god, so why was he spouting nonsense like a scoundrel? Did he have no shame? Did he have no dignity? Did he have no dignity as a paramount heavenly god? That's a good idea. And Lin nodded. A gratified smile appeared on the heavenly sea god's face. "You've finally been enlightened. In the past, you would do anything to achieve your goals. You were as evil as you could get. Don't slander me. I'm in Lin now, and I'm a mighty, righteous man." And Lin spoke with a firm expression. Yes, you're right," the heavenly sea god replied. "Aren't we getting off topic? What's the 3rd stage of Nuwa's mending of the heavens?" And Lin suddenly thought of something important. The heavenly sea god replied, "The 3rd stage is to establish a structure to mend the flaws in the heavenly Tao. Only with a skeleton can one develop flesh and blood. Once the structure is complete, the heavenly Tao will be further perfected, and the barrier will become more resolute. If I don't enter the Tai Chu continent now, I'm afraid that I'll really be stuck outside, so I enter the Tai Chu continent ahead of time. However, entering the Tai Chu continent ahead of time also inflicted severe injuries upon me, and I'll need time to recover." Lin was a little astonished. This Nuwa's mending of the heavens was quite impressive. To think that a paramount heavenly god would almost be unable to enter the Tai Chu continent. Wouldn't it be much better than crushing the heavens? Lin thought to himself for a moment before asking, "How long will it take for you to recover? Are we going to wait for you to recover before we act?" The heavenly sea god replied, "There's no need for that. Let me tell you some good news. I've successfully established contact with the heavenly life goddess and the heavenly heaven god, and I'll pretend to be working with them to deal with light and earth. When the time comes, we'll find an opportunity to betray them and kill the 4 paramount heavenly gods." And Lin. Chapter 1978. And Lin was once again astonished by the heavenly sea god's actions. What was going on? Was this going to be a show? On the surface, the heavenly sea god was on the same side as light and earth, but now he was on the same side as life and sky. However, that was also fake. The heavenly sea god had actually formed an alliance with him, a three-way battle. The heavenly sea god was going to fly, and Lin didn't know what to say for a moment. Do you have a detailed plan? And Lin asked. The heavenly sea god replied, the heaven-crushing sect is about to launch an all-out attack. When that time comes, the situation will be extremely unpredictable. All we can do is play it by ear. And Lin, play it by ear? Was this a F***king brainless plan? The heaven-mending sect has already progressed to the third stage of mending the heavens. So why aren't you stopping her? And Lin was perplexed. Mending the heavens is in accordance with the heavenly Tao. If we attack Niwa, we will suffer a backlash from the heavenly Tao. The heavenly sea god was speechless. Why don't you know anything? Why are you living like an idiot? And Lin wore an awkward expression. That's not what I'm after. I'm after freedom and freedom. After all, the more I know, the more karma I'll have to bear. Then why are you asking me these questions now? Aren't you contradicting yourself? The heavenly sea god asked with a smile. Because I want to take responsibility, and Lin replied. The heavenly sea god fell silent for a moment. By the way, Brother Sea, are you free right now? And Lin asked. What do you mean? I'll do my best to help you. The heavenly sea god didn't like to beat around the bush, so he cut to the chase. And Lin was ecstatic to hear this. Can you let me have a bite? The heavenly sea god's heart jolted. What? What do you mean? That's exactly what it means. Let me take a bite of your flesh, and I'll become more powerful after eating your flesh. Just a small bite, and you'll be able to obtain an even more powerful companion. And Lin explained patiently. That's right, the condition for him to progress to the Tao integration stage was to eat the flesh of a paramount heavenly god. This condition appeared to be super difficult to achieve, but don't forget that he had Brother Hai. The heavenly sea god was also a paramount heavenly god. The heavenly sea god was dumbstruck for over 10 seconds. If you're my brother, then let me bite you, and Lin said anxiously. The heavenly sea god coughed lightly. I think I know what's going on now. You're trying to absorb the essence of a paramount heavenly god to unlock the power of darkness within your body, right? And Lin blinked, and he suddenly felt like he had been enlightened. However, it's true that I've been injured. If I also injure my essence, it'll be an irreversible blow to me, and it might even affect my ability to become a complete heavenly Tao. So, I'm really sorry, the heavenly sea god said in a dejected voice. I see. All right then. And Lin was also very disappointed, but there was nothing he could do. Something like this had to be consensual. If the heavenly sea god couldn't do it, then there was nothing he could do. Don't worry. I'll help you slice off the flesh of the other paramount heavenly gods, the heavenly sea god promised with an earnest expression. And Lin was a little taken aback. Why did these words sound so familiar? I'll contact you when I have a plan. I can use the excuse that I'm still recovering from the backlash as an excuse, but my subordinates have to fight. Tell Lan Xiaoni to send some unimportant troops to fight against the Western Heavenly Gate Army. Don't be too harmonious. That would be too fake, the heavenly sea god said. He had decided to put on an act, so he had to put on a good show. And Lin naturally understood this, and he nodded in agreement. Thus, both sides ended the call. And Lin looked up into the sky with complex emotions. He was originally just a nobody, an ordinary person who wanted to live a peaceful and stable life. However, before he knew it, even though he had tried his best to avoid the vortex of battle, he had still found himself at the center of the vortex in the end. There were some things that he had no choice in. He was bound to too many people, and too many people had made their way into his heart, all of whom he wanted to protect. The heavenly gods wanted to destroy the human race and kill his friends and brothers. So how could he just stand by and do nothing? He couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Seeing as that was the case, he might as well step into the center of the vortex instead. He would fight against the most powerful enemy and turn the world upside down. And Lin understood what he was really thinking, and his eyes became clearer and more determined. And Lin, it's time to eat. I made some delicious food for you today. A young woman's pleasant voice sounded from outside the door. "I'm coming." And Lin smiled gently and quickly walked out of the door. Although Su Xiaolan was a young woman now, she still had a strong point, and that was that she loved to study food and cook delicious food for Lin. During the past few days, they had tasted all the delicacies in Yutong City, and Su Xiaolan had gained some inspiration for cooking. She could not wait to drag Lin into an experiment. Lin was also happy to do so. After all, Su Xiaolan had the foundation of a cooking god, so no matter how she prepared the dish, it would definitely be delicious. And Lin came to the dining table with anticipation, and his expression gradually became blank as he looked at the delicacies on the table. What is this?" And Lin's eyes widened. "This is a dish that I've been inspired to cook," Su Xiaolan said with a smile. A rich green color surged on the table. All kinds of green vegetables and spirit materials released a dazzling green light, illuminating his vision. Everywhere he looked, he saw green mountains and clear waters. It was an extremely natural environment. Heart of green vine, treasure ocean octopus, nine heavens green grass, green hippopotamus, treasure spirit green fungus. All of the dishes looked very delicious, but they were all green in color, and when they were gathered together, they created an extremely strange scene that made Lin's legs turn to jelly. Just imagine a table that was completely green, and it was glowing with a green light. Isn't this a little too green?" And Lin's voice trembled. Su Xiaolan blinked as she tapped her chin with her finger. "It's all right. Green represents environmental protection and health, so it's all right to be green. It's also a special feature." And Lin was very flustered. "Xiaolan, have you been traumatized?" A faint smile appeared on Teenage Lan's face. "No, it's just that I suddenly had an epiphany when I cuckolded myself last time, and I felt like I could make a green dish for myself to taste. This is the crystallization of my inspiration." And Lin's lips twitched. This was not the crystallization of inspiration. This was a landslide of inspiration. "Come, and Lin, it's time to drink your medicine. This is green dance grass soup. It can relieve a day of exhaustion and nourish your stomach." Teenage Lan brought a bowl of green soup to Lin's mouth in a thoughtful manner. Chapter 1979. A familiar feeling suddenly welled up in his heart, and Lin recalled the horror of being drugged by Xiaolan again. "Xiaolan, you have to believe me. I love you." He opened his mouth with tears in his eyes and swallowed a mouthful of the green soup that Xiaolan was feeding him. This soup is quite delicious." And Lin faltered slightly before suddenly feeling like it was quite delicious. "Is it good?" A mesmerizing smile appeared on Teenage Xiaolan's peerlessly beautiful features. "It's delicious. Xiaolan's cooking is always delicious." And Lin nodded with an honest expression. "Drink more if you like it. It's healthy and environmentally friendly." Teenage Xiaolan picked up the spoon with a practiced hand and fed Lin the soup. The two of them were so happy that they forgot about the green dishes on the table. And Lin then bravely tasted all of the dishes on the table to find that even though all of the dishes were very green, they tasted extraordinarily good. What a delicious aroma. A pleased smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face upon seeing Lin's elated expression before digging in with Lin. The bloodlines of the 6 vermilion bird sages are recovering very quickly. They should be able to return to their peak power in a few days, Su Xiaolan said as she ate. "That's good. We'll be able to improve our core combat power once again." And Lin nodded in response. "The heavenly sea god of the West Sea has already appeared. So aren't you worried that the defenses over there are a little weaker?" Su Xiaolan asked curiously. "Everything is under control. Don't worry. There's a teleportation spell formation in Yutong City that leads directly to the immortal land above water. If something happens, we can teleport there immediately." And Lin smiled. Su Xiaolan nodded. "That works too. The heavenly sea god isn't very aggressive at the moment, so the heaven-crushing sect should be able to target it as well. We don't have to worry about that. Is Lan Xiaoni beautiful?" "She is." Slap. Maiden Lan suddenly put down her chopsticks. "But she's only ordinary beautiful, and she's far from being able to make me yearn for Little Lan's appearance." And Lin ate a mouthful of the devil's heart, and his expression was calm as he remedied the situation in an extremely natural manner. Is that so? Lan Xiaoni is a stunning beauty of the West Sea. I heard from the people of the West Sea that you have a super good relationship with her. Teenage Xiaolan picked up her chopsticks and continued to slowly pick up more food. Not bad, buddy. And Lin ate a piece of green shadow tripe. The adolescent girl Lan was naive, lively, and adorable. Her feelings for Enlin were also extremely passionate, but at the same time, she had an unavoidable shortcoming, and that was that she was very jealous. Enlin had known about this a long time ago and was as calm as an old dog. Every cultivator was a big eater, and they could quickly digest the dishes on the table. Enlin and Su Xiaolan finished the dishes on the table in just a few bites. Even though the table of green dishes appeared to be some sort of dark cuisine from the outside, Enlin could guarantee after eating that this was an extremely delicious meal. After eating, the two of them went to the Silver Moon River and rowed the boat while admiring the vibrant sea of flowers on both sides of the river. Thus, another wonderful and fulfilling day passed by. Early the next morning, Enlin sat down to meditate, as usual. The door to his room was suddenly opened. A fragrant scent wafted toward him. Immediately afterward, he felt a warm sensation on his forehead. Enlin opened his eyes to discover a woman in a jade dress. Her features were as beautiful as a painting, and she had a faint smile on her face. Her facial features were so exquisite that they were unimaginably perfect, and the smile on her face had become a lot more mature. He was a little dumbstruck. The woman in front of him was not only extremely beautiful, but she also had an excellent figure. Her skin was white and tender, like a ripe peach that was at its most delicious moment, ready to be plucked at any time. 40-year-old Xiaolan, here's a good morning kiss for you. Su Xiaolan was a little shy, and she glanced at Enlin with some annoyance. Why do you keep staring at my private parts? Enlin was stunned at first, and then he came to his senses and said with a shocked expression, 40-year-old? What 40-year-old? Didn't you say that you would return to your original appearance after a period of time? How come you've become more mature and developed than before? Su Xiaolan furrowed her brows in distress. I don't know either. Ever since I advanced to the immortal cultivation rank, my appearance has been fixed at 20 years old. No matter what, my appearance won't change. Who would have thought that I would look like this when I woke up today? She patted her chest that had become much larger and sighed. Sigh. I'm also very distressed. The corners of Enlin's mouth twitched imperceptibly. She was distressed even though she had become bigger. If the legal lowly knew about this, wouldn't she eat half to death? He then looked at the current Su Xiaolan. Her figure had become slightly more plump, and her entire body was releasing a mature and charming aura. It should be said that the current her was even more charming and gorgeous. This Xiaolan, I like it. And Lin felt very happy. Xiaolan, I'll return you a good morning kiss. And Lin, why are you so anxious? A beautiful morning began with a good morning kiss between lovers. It was like a little bird drinking the morning dew and tasting the sweet flower juice, making one forget to leave. The two of them kissed for a while before going to eat breakfast. Su Xiaolan liked to cook when she was free. This could be said to have developed into a hobby. Thinking about it seriously, she was actually led astray by Enlin. Enlin had dragged her to the celestial court to cook to earn money, so Enlin had successfully escaped. Su Xiaolan, on the other hand, was obsessed with cooking. Even though she was not short of money now and did not need to cook for the immortals of the celestial court, she still could not help but tinker with new dishes every day to cook for herself and those close to her. As time went on, not only did her cooking skills become more and more awesome, but her recipes also became more varied. Now, cooking had become an important part of her life, and Lin found that this was the best decision he had made back then. Because of him, there was now a beautiful wife who took the initiative to cook for him. Not only that, she made delicious food, but she also took pleasure in it. Wasn't this a super happy event? And Lin happily enjoyed Xiaolan's breakfast and welcomed the beautiful day ahead. After finishing their breakfast, the two of them went to inspect the defenses on the city wall to see if there were any flaws in the spell formation. After that, They continued to enjoy themselves around Yutong City with Xiaolan, as if they were the happiest couple ever. Thus, a few days passed by in bliss. The heavenly sea god suddenly contacted Enlin. Enlin, I've received some important information. The heavenly sea god was a little excited. Enlin's eyes lit up. Oh, what is it? Any information that could be considered important by a paramount heavenly god was definitely not some trivial matter. It could very well be information that could decide the course of the war. Chapter 1980. The heavenly sea god spoke in an indifferent voice. Do you know how the heavenly human tribe came to be? Enlin faltered slightly upon hearing this. There are eggs of different colors hanging from the divine trees, and the heavenly human tribe are hatched from these eggs. The heavenly sea god was astonished. You know about that? Enlin smiled. He had been to that special place and even seen the heavenly life goddess, so how could he not know about it? Who would have thought that you would know something? The heavenly sea god sighed with emotion. Don't think of me as an idiot. Enlin snapped. Have you already been to the heavenly human holy land? The heavenly sea god asked. Enlin thought for a moment. If the place you're talking about is filled with auspicious energy, vital energy rivers, mountains of unfathomable heights, and divine trees hundreds of thousands of feet tall with pink leaves, then I think I've been to that place. That's the place. The place where we nurture the heavenly human tribe. The heavenly sea god replied with excitement. So what does that have to do with the information you're going to tell me? Enlin asked, do you know how many heavenly human tribe soldiers there are? The heavenly sea god asked. Enlin thought to himself for a moment. If we're talking about the heavenly human tribe living beings alone, then the 3 heavenly gates should have around 100 million soldiers, right? The heavenly sea god nodded. The number of eggs in the heavenly human holy land that have yet to hatch is over 10 times that of the heavenly human tribe army. Enlin's heart jolted upon hearing this. There were that many. He seemed to have guessed what the heavenly sea god was going to say. The heavenly human tribe has a very short growth cycle. From the moment they hatch to the point where they're ready for battle, only 1 year is required. Imagine what would happen if all of the eggs hatched at the same time. The heavenly sea god asked. Enlin took a deep breath. A heavenly human tribe army of 1 billion? In all honesty, a heavenly human tribe army of 100 million was already extremely terrifying. Under normal circumstances, it was already comparable to the combined armies of several first-rate forces on the Tai Chu continent. If the heavenly human tribe army was 10 times that, then they would be completely crushed. Is it possible to hatch all of them? Enlin asked with a trembling voice. The heavenly sea god chuckled. Of course it's possible. Why do you think the heavenly gods didn't launch a large-scale attack back then? Avoiding backlash from the heavenly Tao was one of the reasons, and the other reason was that he didn't want to waste too much energy. He wanted to use the heavenly human tribe to whittle down the living beings of the Tai Chu continent. After all, the heavenly human tribe is created from the life essence of the entire realm of stars. Not only is it produced in a short period of time, but it's also of high quality and an endless supply. 1 billion is just the current number. In 100 years, even 10 billion won't be a problem. Enlin gulped. Could it be that the information you're talking about has something to do with the destruction of this heavenly human tribe, Holy Land? No. You don't have the power to destroy the heavenly human holy land. In reality, there isn't enough time for them to create more heavenly human tribe armies. Nuwa's mending of the heavens has progressed to the 3rd stage, and not only am I unable to enter the Tai Chu continent, the heavenly human tribe is also unable to do so. Hence, the paramount heavenly gods moved 1 billion heavenly human tribe eggs to the Tai Chu continent. They planned to incubate them all at once before quickly ripening them, so that they could form a heavenly human tribe army of 1 billion within a month. Light and Earth have just told me about this plan. Enlin's eyes lit up. So, you know where to put the eggs? Do you want us to go and destroy those eggs? Where are the eggs? There should be a lot of soldiers guarding them, right? The heavenly sea god Actually, those eggs are right here with me. And Lin, they want my western heavenly gate to become a breeding ground for a heavenly human tribe army of 1 billion. After successfully nurturing them, the heavenly human tribe army will sweep through the entire Tai Chu continent. The heavenly sea god explained, and Lin's lips twitched upon hearing this. These two paramount heavenly gods must be blind to have left such an important item with the heavenly sea god. How could these eggs be placed in the heavenly sea god's hands? If these 1 billion heavenly human tribe living beings could listen to me, then this wouldn't be the case. However, I didn't participate in nurturing the heavenly human tribe, so my control over them is nowhere near as effective as light and life. If a conflict arises, they won't listen to me, so I have to get rid of them. The heavenly sea god spoke with a serious expression, and Lin was quite amused by this. The heavenly sea god had only just received news of this, and he was already plotting within Lin on how to deal with these 1 billion eggs. If the two paramount heavenly gods knew about this, they would be enraged. This was the heavenly human tribe's most secretive and terrifying power, and it had to be eliminated while it was still in its infancy. Otherwise, even if Lin and the heavenly sea god were to successfully launch a sneak attack on the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army, they would still suffer extremely heavy casualties. The only difficult part for us now is how to create a coincidence so that you can accidentally destroy the heavenly human tribe heavenly god egg here. The entire process has to be logical and natural in order to avoid arousing suspicion from light and earth, the heavenly sea god said. That was indeed a difficult part. Where are the 1 billion eggs at the western heavenly gate? Lin asked. About 10,000 kilometers northeast of the western heavenly gate, on a massive island with abundant vital energy. I've also set up a paramount nomological formation to protect it, the heavenly sea god replied. And Lin almost threw up a mouthful of blood upon hearing this. Are you proud of setting up such a King Bad SS formation? Can't you lower the difficulty a little? The 1 billion heavenly human tribe eggs are an extremely important part of our strategy. How am I supposed to lower the difficulty? How am I supposed to lower the difficulty? A conflicted expression appeared on the heavenly sea god's face. And Lin, on one hand, he wanted him to wreak havoc. On the other hand, he wanted to elevate the defenses there to the highest level. Wasn't this asking for too much? And Lin's brows furrowed tightly as he fell in a deep thought. After a short while, his eyes lit up. I have a plan. You've thought of it already? The heavenly sea god was still racking his brains to no avail, and he faltered slightly upon hearing Lin's words. Is this a good idea? I don't want to give myself away so quickly. The heavenly sea god was a little skeptical. And Lin, let me finish first. The heavenly sea god nodded. All right. And Lin, like this. The heavenly sea god paused for a moment before his eyes also lit up. However, he was still a little hesitant. That isn't very appropriate. You can't catch the wolf without risking the child. And Lin spoke with a solemn expression. That's even more inappropriate. You're selling my child. The heavenly sea god was a little gloomy. For the sake of our grand cause, for the sake of your dream, you can't even bear to make such a small loss? And Lin was exasperated. The heavenly sea god took a deep breath and made up his mind. All right, I'll do it. Chapter 1981. And Lin and the heavenly sea god chatted for a while longer before cutting off the connection. A grand plan had already begun. And Lin returned to his normal life and waited for the wind to blow again. Yutong Divine City was once again filled with the sight of two immortal couples enjoying their meals. In the eastern region of the Tai Chu continent, an earth-shattering battle erupted on the eastern border of the Kingdom of the Nine States. Over 100 million heavenly human tribe united army attacked Shenxi City. Tens of millions of soldiers from the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army were also fighting back with all their might. On the eastern side of Dawn City, the sounds of battle cries, and the collision of spell techniques rang out incessantly. All of these explosions were filled with destructive power, and it was as if heaven and earth were about to be torn asunder. On the massive city wall of Chunxi City, Over 1,000 ionic collapse cannons rumbled incessantly. Each and every cannon blast would cause the space around the target to cave in and tear all of the heavenly human tribe living beings to shreds. This was a massive slaughter machine that had already slain hundreds of thousands of heavenly human tribe living beings. It was the work of the 4-9 immortal sect's Purple Star Pavilion. Aside from that, there were also 10 void cannons on the city wall that could shoot black particles. Each and every one of them was like a black streak of light that pierced through the air, reducing all living beings in its path to the tiniest of particles. These void cannons were extremely fearsome, and even Heaven Pioneer stage great generals will be severely wounded or killed by them. There was also a blue ball-shaped cannon. This cannon was not an offensive cannon. Instead, it was a defensive cannon that could annihilate all living beings within a kilometer radius of Chunxi City with superdimensional energy. Not only was it extremely fast, but it also had the power of karma imbued within its core. These cannons were all advanced technology from the 4-9 immortal sect, and countless powerful beings on the battlefield were astonished by them. They had transformed a battle between ancient cultivators into a battle between cultivators from science fiction. The disciples of the 4-9 immortal sect's Purple Star Pavilion were constantly firing cannons. At most, they would have a protective cannon. As for the disciples of the other pavilions of the 4-9 immortal sect, all of them were equipped with high-tech exoskeletons. Not only were these exoskeletons extremely powerful, but they could also fly through the air, unleash spell techniques, and use energy amplification devices. All of them were far more powerful than they should be, making them appear as if they were warriors from the future. All of the cultivators from the other sects were extremely envious upon seeing this. They also wanted this high-tech exoskeleton. If it weren't for the fact that these things were so expensive that they couldn't be mass-produced, they would definitely buy a batch. The other pavilions of the 4-9 immortal sect also performed extremely well. All members of the Blood Pavilion were at the Return to Void stage, and there were more than a dozen Return to Void stage mighty figures among them. Wherever they went, it was as if they had been plunged into a crimson hell, and they were able to extract all of the heavenly human tribe's blood from their bodies. Although the Snow Maidens of the Snow Maiden Pavilion were extremely beautiful, they were extremely vicious and cruel. The battlefield they were in was covered in ice and snow, and the extreme cold was taking their lives. Not long after the battle began, over 1 million heavenly human tribe powerful beings had already been turned into exquisite ice sculptures. What a beautiful work of art! To freeze the most beautiful appearance, to leave the most beautiful state in this instant is fate, and also the true meaning of life. This is the true art. The Snow Empress stroked the ice sculpture of a female great general of the heavenly human tribe. The female great general was still in the stance of drawing her sword when she was instantly frozen to death. Inside the ice cube, her beautiful face was frozen, but her sharp and resolute eyes were still there, like the most perfect sculpture. Shangwan, he turned to look at the Snow Empress with a resigned expression. She really didn't dare to compliment the Empress's bad taste. After killing the enemy, she still wanted to admire and praise them. What kind of hobby was that? The Snow Maidens were extremely powerful. They had 2 Tao integration stage super mighty figures, a dozen or so return to void stage super mighty figures, and an army of over 10 million Snow Maidens. If one didn't know better, they would have thought that some first-rate power had participated in this battle. However, they were only a branch of the 4-9 immortal sect. The Sword Pavilion and Dragon Pavilion were also extremely powerful. The Sword Pavilion's Starfire battleship spanned for over 150 kilometers, and countless cannon blasts rained down upon the heavenly human tribe army. In terms of combat prowess, it was only comparable to a Tao integration stage super mighty figure. However, after being upgraded by Bai Ling, the Starfire battleship's slaughter and annihilation abilities had far exceeded that of a Tao integration stage super mighty figure. The relentless cannon blasts were a testament to this. It didn't even have time to breathe. If any Tao integration stage super mighty figure were to try this, there was no way they would be able to keep firing. The two Tao integration stage true dragons of the Dragon Pavilion were even more fearless on the battlefield. They charged headlong into the enemy's territory and slaughtered their way through the battlefield. One of them had invincible defenses, while the other wasn't afraid of death. The heavenly human tribe army was on the brink of collapse. This wasn't a battle. This was a battle of attrition. In terms of ferocity, even the 5 emperors of the Celestial Court couldn't compare to these two true dragons. They were fighting with everything they had. It couldn't be helped that they had more lives than they had to. Apparently, Xiao Tu had even gone to the Eastern Heavenly Gate once. He had faced off against several heavenly gods and the Heavenly Light Goddess, but he still hadn't died. This was massive news that had rocked the entire Tai Chu continent. The 4-9 Immortal Sect's performance on the Eastern Front was comparable to that of the Celestial Court. Furthermore, the 4-9 Immortal Sect was even more invincible on the Central Front. They had 9 Vermilion Birds, Sect Leader in Lin, and Acting Sect Leader Su Xiaolan. It could be said that they were invincible. On a certain battlefield, a man with a buzz cut and wearing a suit of dragon crystal armor swept through the battlefield with a spear in his hand. His spear techniques were extremely exquisite, and there was terrifying lightning revolving around his body, making him appear as if he were a massive dragon that was wreaking havoc on the battlefield. This man was none other than Wang Xuanzhan, who had interacted with Lin on many occasions. He was once number 1 on the United Immortal Rankings board, and after 100 years of cultivation, he was now a ferocious general of the Celestial Court. His cultivation base had also reached the return to void stage, and it could be said that he was a supremely talented prodigy. However, he didn't have the right to be proud, nor did he have the right to be proud. There was nothing he could do about it. His juniors were countless times more bad *SS than he was. Wang Xuanzhan cultivated in the Tao of the battlefield, and he was extremely powerful on the battlefield. Every sweep and slash of his spear was imbued with mountainous power that far exceeded that of normal celestial immortals. Before he knew it, he had already killed over 100,000 enemies. It was exactly because of his ferocious performance that he attracted the attention of the heavenly human tribe, Great General. Boom! A terrifying pressure descended upon the area. A Heaven Pioneer stage, heavenly human tribe, mighty figure suddenly appeared before Wang Xuanzhan, before unleashing a palm strike. Wang Xuanzhan reacted extremely quickly, and he let loose an enraged roar as lightning crackled on the tip of his spear. Roar! A dragon's roar erupted. Lightning exploded. Wang Xuanzhan felt an irresistible force emanating from his spear, which extended to his arm, tearing it apart and sending blood gushing forth. PFFF. Wang Xuanzhan threw up a mouthful of blood and flew back with severe injuries. Heaven Pioneer stage cultivators were known to be invincible below the Tao integration stage, and this was no exaggeration. He was only a celestial immortal who had just progressed to the return to void intermediate stage, so he was no match for them. An extremely handsome man bathed in the holy light of the heavens quickly approached Wang Xuanzhan before spreading open his snowy white wings and looking down at him from above. His palms began to expand in size as terrifying energy fluctuations emanated from them. Dragon General of the Celestial Court, Wang Xuanzhan, your end is here. The heavenly human tribe, Great General, spoke in a cold voice as his palms crashed toward Wang Xuanzhan. In this dire situation, Wang Xuanzhan gritted his teeth and was just about to fight to the death when a small red flower suddenly appeared on his head, swaying in the wind. Chapter 1982. Wang Xuanzhan was given a fright. Why was there a flower growing on his head? However, he knew that he was in a perilous situation, so he didn't have time to think as he stabbed his sword toward the enemy before him. All of a sudden, a dazzling golden light erupted from the little red flower on his head. The golden light was extremely pure, to the point where Wang Xuanzhan couldn't detect any energy fluctuations. It's over. Golden light exploded from my head. Wang Xuanzhan felt like he was in a tragic situation. He had most likely been struck by some strange spell technique. Who would have thought that he would die in such an inexplicable way instead of dying a heroic death in battle. Just as he was thinking this, a beam of golden light suddenly shot forth from the golden flower on his head, piercing through the heavenly human tribe great general's head at an extremely fast speed. It was so fast that the great general didn't even have time to react. Before the great general's palms had even landed, his body suddenly faltered. Then, his eyes glazed over as a look of enlightenment appeared on his face. Thump! The heavenly human tribe, great general, knelt down with tears streaming down his face. I've made a mistake. I'm filthy and filthy. I beg of you, please kill me. Wang Xuanzhan was just about to retaliate with his dragon-patterned spear when he was dumbstruck upon seeing this. What the hell? The mighty heavenly human tribe, great general, was kneeling down to him and begging to be killed? He didn't recall sending any money to him, so why was he suddenly delivering his head to him? At this moment, a sweet voice sounded from above his head. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and purify the repentant enemy before you. Praise the sun. The heavenly human tribe great general raised his hands high into the air. Turn your heart toward the light. Praise the sun. Splat! Wang Xuanzhan's spear fell, and he cleanly sliced the great general in half before adding expressionlessly, Praise the sun. Never would he have thought that the most powerful enemy he had ever killed would be defeated in such a manner. Thank you for your assistance, Elder Xiaohong, Wang Xuanzhan said in a respectful voice. He didn't know what the little red flower on his head was, but he came to a sudden realization when he heard Xiaohong say, Praise the sun. Who in the Kingdom of the Nine States didn't know that Elder Xiaohong was a salted fish who sunbathed every day? No, it wasn't salted fish, it was a koi. It was nothing. All right, keep up the good work, Mr. Wang Xuanzhan. I'm off to save the others, Xiaohong replied sweetly. Then, her body suddenly disappeared. Wang Xuanzhan didn't know how Xiaohong had come, nor did he know how Xiaohong had left, nor did he know how Xiaohong had managed to make a heavenly human tribe great general kneel. That was a heaven pioneer, stage, heavenly human. As long as the heavenly gods didn't appear, they were the strongest. Their belief in the heavenly Tao and their use of the power of heaven were absolutely superb existences. Such existences were extremely proud, and their Tao hearts were extremely firm. How could they possibly kneel here and let him kill them? Not even the 5 emperors of the celestial court could do this. The meaning behind it made him feel terrified when he thought about it. What kind of freaks are the 4-9 immortal sect powerful beings? Wang Xuanzhan sighed with emotion. Come to think of it, this little red flower seemed to be in Lin's pet beast. Were all pet beasts this amazing? Wang Xuanzhan turned to look at Dabai's dog in the distance. His current combat prowess was roughly equivalent to that of Dabai. What a painful realization. Never would Wang Xuanzhan have thought that over 100 years later, the number 1 prodigy on the immortal rankings board, would only be as powerful as a dog that Lin had ridden. This was simply too surreal. Dabai must have received a lot of immortal opportunities, right? He really wanted to follow Lin. What could he do? Wang Xuanzhan shook his head vigorously to rid himself of these distracting thoughts before charging toward the heavenly human tribe powerful beings. The battle was still raging. Perhaps this was due to the fact that the heavenly human tribe had been defeated on the central front. There were no heavenly gods in this battle. There were only over 100 million heavenly human tribe powerful beings. However, the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army was extremely ferocious and had slain more enemies than the heavenly human tribe powerful beings. When they had suffered 3 to 4 million casualties, the heavenly human tribe had already suffered close to 10 million casualties. The massive increase in morale was one of the reasons for this, but the 4-9 immortal sect was also another reason. Everyone was quite elated. If this battle continued, the heavenly human tribe would eventually run out of soldiers. The Eastern Front was still embroiled in a massive battle. The Central Front was still as peaceful as ever. And Lin and Su Xiaolan were still preparing for battle and living a leisurely life. Yutong City was a massive city, and there were far too many things to experience here. There was food, drink, and entertainment, and all of these activities were unique to the various tribes. The Light Wing clan, the True Demon tribe, the Buddhist tribe, and even the West Sea Monster tribe and the Holy Martial clan all had their own unique activities. Lin held Xiaolan's hand as they traversed through the streets and alleys in an extremely joyful manner. The next morning, the first rays of the morning sun appeared in the east. The cry of the vermilion bird reverberated throughout Yutong City. A new day had begun, and Lin was meditating on his bed. However, the familiar sound of a door being pushed open did not sound for a long time. He was a little confused. In the past, Xiaolan had always been the one to wake him up. After tidying himself up, Lin made his way towards Su Xiaolan's room. He had only just arrived at the door when a voice sounded from within. "Don't come in." The voice was a little familiar, and it was slightly hoarse. And Lin's heart jolted as a sense of foreboding welled up in his heart. He immediately pushed open the door, only to discover that there was a powerful restriction that isolated the surrounding space. "Don't come in. Please. I beg of you." A hoarse, pleading voice sounded from within the door. A white light flashed past in Lin's eyes. Divine inspection technique. What a joke. Do you think I won't come in just because you say so? I'm going to meditate in this room. And Lin flicked a finger toward an obvious flaw in the restriction, and the restriction instantly shattered. He immediately pushed open the door, upon which a female's cry of surprise erupted. A figure in a jade dress had her back to him, and she had her hands tightly clasped over her face with a sobbing voice. "Didn't I tell you not to come in? Why? Why didn't you listen to me? I really didn't want you to see me like this." And Lin faltered upon hearing this. He looked at the thin and frail figure before him. The jade dress was still the same as yesterday, but the body beneath the dress was so frail and frail. Her hair was gray, and her neck was wrinkled. Her hands, which were exposed beneath the dress, had lost their luster and were instead a little saggy. And Lin walked over to the side of the bed and sat down across from the woman in the jade dress. His heart throbbed with pain as he looked at the woman in the jade dress who had turned her head away with her hands covering her face. He stretched out a hand and forcefully pried the woman's hands away from her face. And Lin saw Su Xiaolan's appearance. She still had an oval face, but her face was full of wrinkles and age spots. Her snowy white cheeks were gone. Her seductive lips were gone. Her exquisite nose was gone, and her bright eyes were gone. In their place was a saggy and wrinkled face, shriveled lips, a shriveled nose, and a pair of dull and lifeless eyes. Su Xiaolan's eyes were red, and she finally mustered the courage to look Lin in the eyes. Her voice trembled as she said, "Do you see my face? Are you satisfied now? Get out! Get the hell out of here! I'll be fine in a few days. Just a few days, and I won't look like this. Can't you wait? Why do you have to?" Suddenly, a warm and soft sensation came from her forehead. Su Xiaolan stopped talking and opened her mouth. She stared blankly at the man who was leaning forward, feeling the warmth and softness on her forehead. 10 seconds later, Lin took a step back and looked at the wrinkled Su Xiaolan before him with a warm smile. "Here's a good morning kiss for you. Good morning to the 80-year-old Xiaolan." Chapter 1983. A kiss. A smile. It was as if the morning sun had pierced through the night sky. The pain and gloom in the woman's heart were all dispelled. Su Xiaolan stared blankly at the man before her, and she could no longer hold back her tears. She threw herself into Lin's arms and burst into tears. "How did I become like this? How did I become like this? I'm so ugly. How am I going to face people in the future?" Wah! Su Xiaolan grabbed onto Lin's clothes and burst into tears. She wasn't sad when she became a baby, nor was she sad when she became a lowly. She wasn't sad when she became a teenager or a middle-aged woman, because she was still very beautiful at that time. But now, she had become an 80-year-old woman, and she almost broke down when she looked into the mirror. Although for cultivators, looks were just skin bags, they were just skin bags. But could they really get over it? This was a world where looks mattered. Beauty was something that billions of people yearned for. So how could they ignore it? Su Xiaolan said she didn't care about her looks because she was already very beautiful. No matter how she changed, she would only become more and more beautiful. So of course she didn't care about it. After all, she wasn't called the Holy Maiden or Goddess for nothing. However, when she discovered that she had turned into a white-haired old woman, and her beautiful face had turned into a bark-like appearance, she, who had always been accustomed to being a fairy, suffered a huge blow. It was easy to imagine. Unlin hugged the trembling and sobbing woman in his arms tightly, and his heart ached for her. He didn't want to make the woman in his arms sad, but he didn't know what else he could do. All he could do was hug her tightly and let her know that he would never leave her. The sun set in the west, and the setting sun melted gold. The passage of time was always accompanied by aging and separation. Unlin couldn't decide who would age first, but he could decide to stay with Su Xiaolan forever during this period of time. He didn't say it out loud, but he knew that Su Xiaolan definitely knew that he had made his choice. Don't worry, Xiaolan. This should only be temporary. Even though you've aged, your life force hasn't weakened. This could be a side effect of inheriting the holy birth, but you'll recover very soon. And Lin finally thought of something to comfort her. But what should I do? I've aged so much and become so ugly. I really don't have the face to see anyone. Su Xiaolan's shriveled body lay in Lin's arms, still murmuring in pain. And Lin's eyes lit up. Who do you think is uglier, the clown or you? Su Xiaolan's body trembled, and her eyes reddened as she said angrily, I may be old, 80 years old, but how can you insult me? And Lin smiled and said, That's right. The clown is so ugly, but he still has the face to meet people. Why can't you? Xiao Chou is so ugly, yet he's willing to marry a supremely beautiful woman like Bai Yao. Why are you so flustered? Su Xiaolan's mouth gaped open, but she was completely speechless. Xiao Chou's outrageously ugly features appeared in her mind. Thinking about it that way, the grief and pain in her heart seemed to have been alleviated significantly. In fact, she felt much better. Achoo! On the Eastern Front, the clown was engaged in an intense battle when he suddenly sneezed and looked around with a perplexed expression. Could it be that someone was cursing at him? Die, ugly monkey! In the distance, a few soul-piercing stage, heavenly human tribe generals pounced toward the black, crystalline, armored monkey with rage. The clown glowered at the soul-piercing stage heavenly gods, and boundless scintillating light burst forth from his bulb-like eyes. The soul-piercing stage generals felt as if they were pouncing toward two suns. It was too dazzling. Bam, bam, bam. The clown swung his staff through the air toward the heavenly human tribe generals, who had been blinded by his bulb-like eyes, and one general after another fell amid blood-curdling cries. Die, stupid monkey! Behind the clown, a heavenly human tribe general enshrouded in darkness suddenly stabbed toward the clown's neck. The general's eyes were obscured by the shadows, so he wasn't blinded, and he didn't call the clown an ugly monkey. Instead, he took this opportunity to kill the clown in one fell swoop. The black spear tore through the air like a bolt of lightning. The clown detected the attack behind him, but it was already too late. A triumphant expression appeared on the heavenly human tribe general's face. At this moment, countless tails suddenly obscured the sun in the sky. 6 snowy white foxtails came crashing down upon the general like massive palms. You dare to touch my little monkey? Die! A clear cry erupted from the sky. Boom! The tails were extremely heavy. The heavenly human tribe general let loose a wail of anguish as he crashed into the ground, creating a massive crater. The clown turned around with an ugly smile on his face. Can't you see that there are 2 of us? The heavenly human tribe general's face was filled with rage and indignation at the sight of the exquisitely beautiful woman clinging to the clown in an obedient manner. He was just about to say something when a massive black staff came crashing down mercilessly on his head. Bam! The heavenly human tribe general had fallen. The clown and Bai Yao left hand in hand. In the distance, Dabai was just about to help the clown when he swallowed a mouthful of Dabai food before charging toward the other heavenly human tribe powerful beings. This was a massive battle, and both sides were fighting with all their might. 20 million heavenly human tribe powerful beings had been killed, and only then did they begin to retreat. At this moment, Their numbers had already been reduced to 90 million, which was the same number as the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army. However, the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army had previously numbered 100 million. This meant that the heavenly human tribe had suffered twice as many casualties as the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army. One had to realize that all of the heavenly human tribe powerful beings were extremely powerful. On average, they were on a higher level than the living beings on the Tai Chu continent, but the outcome of the battle was vastly different. This was absolutely unimaginable. Long Ao Ian looked at the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army, and he suddenly realized just how powerful the heavenly human tribe was. An army that had experienced despair and then boundless hope was on a completely different level compared to a normal army. The Kingdom of the Nine States United Army chased them for over 1,500 kilometers. Only when 3 heavenly gods with divine halos above their heads appeared among the heavenly human tribe United Army did the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army stop in their tracks. The Celestial Arch and the ancient Dragon Empress stood at the forefront of the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army, facing off against the heavenly gods without any fear. They were the most powerful beings on the eastern front of the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army, and all of them were extremely proficient in heaven-crushing techniques. As such, they possessed powers that rivaled heavenly gods. The Celestial Arch and the ancient Dragon Empress could continue fighting, but they had no intention of continuing the battle now that the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army had achieved so much. Charge! Ha ha ha! F***CK them all up. At this moment, an earth-shattering roar erupted. 2 black dragons that blotted out the sky actually pounced brainlessly towards the 3 heavenly gods not far away. All of the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army and the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army's expressions shifted at the same time. Chapter 1984. The 80 million strong Heavenly Human Tribe United Army and the 90 million strong Kingdom of the Nine States United Army were already locked in a stalemate. Barring any mishaps, both sides were about to retreat. However, the 2 powerful black dragons pounced on the 3 heavenly gods without a care, looking as if they were going to kill the heavenly gods. The Kingdom of the Nine States United Army was astonished, as was the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army. Had these 2 true dragons gone F***ing insane? The heavenly gods were not just any ordinary beings. They were beings who had mastered the paramount laws of the heavenly Tao. Even if the true dragons were Tao integration stage super mighty figures, they would still be insta-killed if they didn't possess heavenly disciple level combat prowess. However, some of the powerful beings of the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army were quickly relieved after seeing who the 2 true dragons were. These were the 249 immortal sect super mighty figures who were not afraid of death, Xiao Zhe and Xiao Tu. Eat this. Divine Dragon Tail Whip. Xiao Zhe abruptly swung his tail toward a lark with white smoke billowing from the divine halo above its head. The lark crossed its arms to form a shield to take the attack head-on, but its body didn't budge in the slightest. However, Xiao Zhe's body was knocked flying by the terrifying recoil. Heaven-crushing dragon breath. Howl! Xiao Tu opened his mouth and blasted a destructive dragon's breath toward the heavenly god in the distance. The kami, who was shrouded in shadows, suddenly stretched out a withered gray palm and lightly blocked the breath in front of him. Invisible ripples spread out, and the terrifying energy of the breath quickly dissipated in front of its eyes, as if it had fallen and diminished. It became smaller and smaller, and the level of the energy became lower and lower. When it was about to touch its body, it had already turned into a light breeze, and it did not hurt or itch. All of the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army were astonished upon seeing this. Even though Xiao Tu didn't possess heavenly disciple-level combat prowess, he was still a Tao integration stage, primordial dragon tribe mighty figure. How could his full-force attack be nullified so easily by a heavenly god? Celestial Arch, do we need to go and help? The ancient dragon empress asked with a speechless expression. The Celestial Arch massaged his brows. He didn't know what to do. Let's wait for a while. Let those two dragons have their fun first. His voice had only just faded. Xiaoza let out a loud roar and actually started to pounce toward the heavenly god who was shrouded in darkness. Xiao Tu flew toward the lark. The two of them switched opponents tacitly. Xiaoza directly charged towards the heavenly god shrouded in shadows, and used the dragon clan's most commonly used charge attack. The heavenly god waved a hand, and the dark mist surged towards Xiaoza like a tornado. 10,000 mammoth dragons. Xiaoza's entire body was suddenly covered in a layer of ever-changing crystalline armor, which was capable of unleashing different defensive measures against different types of energy. Puff, puff, puff. The dark mist shrouded his body, causing his crystal armor to crack and wither. He had also analyzed his opponent's ability in an instant. Degradation, degeneration, degeneration. It could degenerate all living things. Dragons degenerated into flood dragons. Humans degenerated into gorillas, and phoenixes degenerated into pheasants. It could even degenerate life into stem cells. Xiaoza's expression turned cold. Isn't this attack a little too terrifying? He immediately made the correct decision. He gave up on expending his energy to upgrade his defenses and charged forward instead, swinging his tail toward the heavenly god in front of him. The crystal armor quickly melted away, but before the black mist could touch his dragon scales, the tail had already smashed heavily into the heavenly god's body, who was shrouded in darkness. Bam! A gargantuan thump erupted. The black figure plummeted from the sky and smashed a massive crater into the ground. Countless people's eyes widened with astonishment. Xiaoza had just swatted a heavenly god flying. At this moment, Xiao Tu also pounced toward the nearby lark. Learning from Xiaoza's lesson, Xiao Tu didn't use any physical attacks this time. Instead, he opened his cavernous mouth. What is he trying to do? No way. Everyone's eyes widened as they watched the black dragon swallow the lark-like heavenly god in an extremely violent manner. Then it shut its mouth. All of the onlookers drew a sharp intake of breath. Xiao Tu really was quite daring. One had to realize that this was no ordinary bird. This was an extremely powerful heavenly god. Wasn't he afraid that it would wreak havoc in his stomach? Wasn't he afraid that it would detonate his body? Did he really think his body could slowly digest a heavenly god? It had to be said that Xiao Tu really was insane. Did he have a death wish? Wait, it seemed like he really did have the right to do so. You won't be able to escape now that you've entered my stomach. Have a taste of my infernal dragon grindstone. Xiao Tu chortled with glee as terrifying energy exploded within his body. Awesome. Xiaoza chortled with glee as he also pounced toward the heavenly god on the ground. Right at this moment, a speck of light that no one was paying attention to suddenly flashed. All of a sudden, all of the living beings present felt as if a boundless light was trying to pierce through their eyes, and everything before their eyes turned white. Countless living beings howled with anguish, and some of them were even shedding tears of blood. The light was so bright that it even stripped away all of the living beings' senses. The celestial arch and the ancient dragon empress expressions both shifted drastically. They knew that this light was targeted at Xiaoza and Xiao Tu, as they were the two true dragons. Sure enough, Xiaoza and Xiao Tu let loose panicked roars. The light disappeared just as quickly as it came. However, the light had only just disappeared when the celestial arch and the ancient dragon empress were greeted by the sight of an extremely beautiful heavenly goddess who was holding a massive pink folding fan. Piss off, the heavenly goddess harumphed. Ow! Xiaoza was caught off guard and was knocked flying for over 500 kilometers before being pushed back by a burst of terrifying wind power. Xiao Tu was in an even more miserable state. His body was extremely hot and red. I've become more powerful. I've become more powerful. Xiao Tu writhed frantically as he spoke in a language that no one could understand. Immediately afterward, his dragon scales began to fall off. How are you still alive? The heavenly god wielding the massive golden saber had already appeared on Xiao Tu's back, and a series of terrifying saber projections instantly sliced Xiao Tu's body in half. How? Xiao Tu let loose a blood-curdling wail as a piercing light erupted from his sliced body. The ancient dragon empress and the celestial Arch had initially wanted to rush over to help, but their expressions shifted drastically upon seeing this, and they immediately unleashed a powerful barrier around the army of tens of millions. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion suddenly took place. Golden energy engulfed and destroyed everything around it in a frenzy. Xiao Tu's body had exploded. All of the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army soldiers were grief-stricken. Their most powerful being, Xiao Tu, had died again. Why again? It couldn't be said that Xiao Tu and Xiao Zhe had been completely useless during the mudslide on the battlefield. At the very least, they had drawn out another 2 heavenly gods. Chapter 1985. The Celestial Arch and the Ancient Dragon Empress unleashed their most powerful defenses to keep the shockwaves of Xiao Tu's explosion at bay. The heavenly human tribe seemed to be prepared, and they instantly constructed an invisible barrier to keep the shockwaves at bay. After the explosion, Xiao Tu's body had been reduced to an extremely sorry state. Xiao Zhe was in a slightly better state. He had the most powerful defensive ability among all Dao integration stage super mighty figures, and he was only knocked a little far away by the massive fan-wielding heavenly goddess, but he didn't suffer any serious injuries. However, the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army was becoming quite nervous as 5 heavenly gods had appeared. There was a heavenly god enshrouded in darkness, a heavenly god in the form of a lark, a heavenly god in the form of a speck of light, a heavenly goddess wielding a massive pink fan, and a male heavenly god wielding a massive golden saber. In the past, they had been evenly matched. Now, however, 2 more heavenly gods had appeared, and everyone's flesh crawled with fear. The balance of power had been completely skewed, so it was not impossible for the heavenly human tribe to retaliate. That annoying Beastra starred to finally piss off. A beautiful female heavenly goddess sat on the hovering folding fan, and a faint smile appeared on her face as she looked at Xiaoza, who had transformed into a black dot in the distance. Linghua, you should have killed him, said the Empyrean god with a huge tyrant blade. Linghua shot a cold glance at the male heavenly god. That's easy for you to say. Do you think you can kill that dragon without activating your 9-god halo? The male heavenly god's lips twitched. Wait, kill him to flex with me? At this moment, the lark flew in the air and looked down at the army of 10 million soldiers. A clear voice that was like the chirping of a bird reverberated through the world. Do you still want to continue fighting? If you do, we're more than happy to oblige. Her words had clearly given the Celestial Arch and the others a choice. They could choose not to fight. Kingdom of the Nine States United Army, retreat. The Celestial Thearcha's voice spread throughout the entire battlefield. The Kingdom of the Nine States United Army was relieved to hear this, but they were also a little disappointed. It looked like the final battle was yet to come. The heavenly human tribe army of 90 million retreated in an orderly manner. The heavenly human tribe united army looked on expressionlessly, as if they were watching the heavenly human tribe army depart. Only the lark looked at a certain direction in the distance with a fearful expression. At this moment, Eastern Heaven Gate, in a sea of light, the female being formed from countless particles of light spoke to a piece of soil in her hand. What's the situation at the central heavenly gate? I've run into some trouble, and Lin really is a wild card. Aside from that, the Divine Phoenix Maiden has also become an important obstacle, so I won't be able to proceed with my plan for now. The heavenly earth god's voice sounded from within the soil. The woman was silent for a while before she said, Our plan cannot be changed. If necessary, we could take action to suppress the 2 of them. It's fine as long as you know the severity. That's easy for you to say. He's becoming more powerful far too quickly. I wonder what he'll be like in a real battle. The heavenly earth god sighed in a resigned voice. With the help of the heavenly sea god, do you think you can't suppress the 2 of them? The woman chuckled. He's still recovering from his injuries, the heavenly earth god replied. Then after he recovers from his injuries, you can join forces with him to suppress Lin and kill the Divine Phoenix Maiden, the woman said in a nonchalant manner. In her eyes, and Lin and Su Xiaolan were indeed wild cards, but they weren't enough to pose a threat to their plan. At most, they would be a little troublesome to deal with. How was your plan progressing? The heavenly earth god asked. Very smoothly. A carefree smile appeared on the woman's face at the mention of this. We used 20 million heavenly human tribe powerful beings to whittle down 10 million Kingdom of the Nine States United Army. What a pitiful and laughable bunch of humans. The heavenly human tribe is nothing more than a tool in our eyes. If they knew that there were still a billion heavenly human tribe powerful beings waiting for them in the West Sea, I wonder what they would think. The heavenly earth god was very pleased. We've whittled down the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army. All we have to do is hold off the two most powerful beings of the heaven-crushing sect, and we'll be able to completely eradicate the human race. That billion heavenly human tribe powerful being is our trump card. We can't expose that, the woman cautioned. Don't worry, don't underestimate the heavenly sea god. He's very powerful. The heavenly earth god was not concerned. At Yutong City, and Lin received a report from the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army on the Eastern Front. The Celestial Arch was elated as he recounted the glorious feats on the Eastern Front. However, a peculiar expression appeared on Lin's face upon reading this report. He seemed to have guessed what their enemies were trying to do. When the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army only had half of its forces left, a billion heavenly human tribe united army suddenly appeared from the west. Were you surprised or not? This was not a bad plan, but they didn't think that their allies would want to become the heavenly Tao, and Lin couldn't help but burst into laughter with this in mind. What's making you so happy? Su Xiaolan carried a bowl of food to Lin as she looked at him. She was currently wearing a little bear mask. There was no helping it. Although Lin didn't mind her appearance, she still minded it a lot. She couldn't change her original appearance, so she could only wear a mask to hide it. What was worth celebrating was that even though Su Xiaolan had put on the mask, she had finally calmed down and accepted this reality. She was going to do what she had to do, and her hobby of cooking hadn't changed. And Lin savored the delicious dishes in front of him before handing the report to Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan was also elated after reading the report. 10 million casualties and over 20 million enemies killed? That's a good thing. No wonder you're smiling so happily. And Lin's lips twitched upon hearing this. He was smiling so happily only because he had seen through the heavenly human tribe's scheme. Speaking of which, the heavenly sea god should be making his move soon, right? At this moment, on the western border of the Taichu continent, within a boundless ocean, countless sea monsters beat their war drums. Over 20 million sea monsters formed a formation in the ocean, unleashing an earth-shattering aura. Lan Xiaoni's fishtail was coiled up, and she was sitting on a huge, colorful bubble that hovered at the center of the formation. This was the first large-scale battle the heavenly sea god was engaged in against the West Sea heavenly human tribe, so she naturally had to lead the army in person. She could mobilize an army of over 40 million sea monsters, but this battle was only a test, so she didn't want to mobilize her entire army. Aside from the 20 million sea monsters, there were also 5 million Holy Martial Clan and 5 million True Demon Tribe living beings who were completely at Lan Xiaoni's beck and call. In the past, the West Sea Alliance had been guarding the Western Heavenly Gate. Now that the Heavenly Sea God had appeared, all of the other powers on the Taichu continent were starting to panic. Even though the West Sea Alliance didn't request for reinforcements, they still sent their most powerful army to reinforce them. The West Sea Alliance was the most important stronghold on the Western Front, so they couldn't be allowed to fall. Lan Xiaoni looked at the heavenly human tribe united army in the distance, and a solemn expression appeared on her face as she waved a hand through the air. West Sea Alliance Army, heed my command. Chapter 1986. The battle had begun. The West Sea Alliance consisted of 20 million sea monsters, 5 million true demon tribe cultivators, and 5 million Holy Martial Clan cultivators. A terrifying wave of 30 million cultivators surged toward the heavenly human tribe cultivators, who only numbered 20 million. The celestial human tribe members flew through the air, unleashing one holy light attack after another. Pure white holy light continuously descended, illuminating the entire sky. Boom, boom, boom. The holy light shot into the ocean, causing the water to splash violently. The sea monsters approached through the seabed, but the heavenly human tribe's holy light was extremely penetrative, and it could easily pierce through the sea and the bodies of the sea monsters. One by one, the sea demons screamed miserably. Then, they died and floated to the surface. This scene was like a fish being fried. Of course, the sea monsters were no pushovers, either. Streaks of extremely concentrated water imbued with extremely high energy shot into the sky from the ocean, piercing through the bodies of the heavenly human tribe powerful beings one after another like sharp spears, inflicting severe injuries on them as they plummeted into the ocean. All of the heavenly human tribe cultivators who fell into the ocean, regardless of whether they were dead or severely wounded, were devoured by the piranhas without exception. These piranhas had no intelligence, and they didn't belong to Lan Xiaoni's army. However, there were hundreds of millions of them in the ocean, and their favorite food was the corpses of heavenly human tribe cultivators. The true demons also had black bat wings, and they rose into the air before unleashing a series of dark magic spells to clash with the heavenly human tribe powerful beings. Black and white energy rings intertwined in the air. Those who didn't know better would think it was an epic battle between an angel and a devil. The Holy Martial clan was in an awkward situation. They didn't have wings, and they couldn't swim, so they could only tread on the waves. Most of these 5 million Holy Martial clan powerful beings were close-quarters combat powerful beings, and they could only run for their lives in the face of the concentrated holy light cannon fire. One by one, their brothers were smashed to death by the holy light as they ran. However, this did not make them afraid. Instead, it aroused their fighting spirit. The 5 million Holy Martial clan cultivators suffered heavy casualties as they approached the Holy Martial monarch, and they were almost smashed into the ground. But finally, they approached the heavenly human tribe united army. Bang, bang, bang. All of them stomped on the surface of the ocean, causing the surface of the ocean to cave in. Their bodies shot into the sky like rockets, and they unleashed their fists right before the shocked heavenly human tribe cultivators' eyes. Bang, bang, bang. The heavenly human tribe living beings didn't even get a chance to resist before their bodies were smashed into smithereens by the Holy Martial clan powerful beings. The Holy Martial clan was the tribe that was most proficient in combat, and their bodies were also the most heaven-defying. After the Holy Martial tribe drew closer to the heavenly human tribe, their casualties began to mount. That's right, the members of the Holy Martial clan were being beaten up like cowards when they were running from a distance. However, once they got closer, they would beat them up like a coward. The heavenly human tribe great general was so frightened that he hurriedly began to issue commands. Spread out, quickly spread out, raise the altitude, stay away from a sea. The heavenly human tribe was caught off guard by this sudden attack, and they hurriedly changed their battle strategy. However, just as they thought they could widen the distance between them and launch a high-altitude attack, the sea suddenly roared. Then, the seawater within a radius of several thousand miles soared into the sky and gathered in the center, forming a giant water net that kept pressing down. The Celestial Clan's army was shocked. How was this miraculous scene accomplished? Thousands of miles of seawater. Even a heavenly god wouldn't be able to do this. Long live Alliance leader Lan. Kill all of the heavenly humans. The West Sea Alliance United Army knew that this was the work of their Alliance leader, and they became even more excited. All of the true demon tribe and Holy Martial clan powerful beings turned toward the center of the battle formation, where the woman exuding a paramount aura and a divine halo above her head were also struck by an indescribable sense of awe and veneration. This West Sea Alliance leader's performance was simply breathtaking. In fact, it was even comparable to a heavenly god's performance. It was also at this moment that an ethereal voice imbued with paramount might erupted throughout the sea. As expected, the power of the heavenly gods is very powerful. Everything that Mistress Ocean has done is correct. However, we still encountered a bit of problem. We have to correct this misconception. In an instant, a strange light reflected in the sky and flashed by. The huge net of seawater that was pressing down from the sky stopped for a moment and showed signs of collapsing. At this moment, countless streaks of silvery gray liquid as sharp as blades fell from the sky, slicing the massive seawater net into pieces. A heavenly god appeared in the air above the heavenly human tribe united army with a paramount divine might exuding from its body. We meet again, Alliance Leader Lon. A faint smile appeared on Lon Xiaoni's face as she looked at the heavenly god in the distance. Heavenly liquid god? Last time, you were defeated like a stray dog, running away faster than anyone else. This time, who gave you the courage to stand in front of me again? This was none other than the heavenly liquid god that Lon Xiaoni had interacted with before. The heavenly liquid god's body trembled with rage upon hearing this. Kukuku, if it weren't for your lover, we would have killed you long ago. It would have been fine if you hid in the immortal land above water, but who would have thought that you would dare to come out again? If we can kill you once, we can kill you twice. The heavenly god with a body that resembled an oval mirror screeched. It was none other than the heavenly mirror god of the western heavenly gate. Who would have thought that you two would come again? Are you here to help me warm up? Lon Xiaoni flicked her tail and flew into the air. She spread open her arms, and the boundless West Sea began to roar and churn at the same time. This divine might struck fear into the hearts of both the heavenly human tribe and the spirit fish clan. The heavenly human tribe united army was wondering if they would be insta-killed by the spirit fish clan. The spirit fish clan allies were wondering if they would also be reduced to corpses by Alliance Leaderland's wrath. Even the heavenly liquid god and the heavenly mirror god wore grave expressions. After their last battle, Lon Xiaoni's control over the powers of the heavenly gods seemed to have improved significantly. Did living beings on the Tai Chu continent really suffer less from the heavenly Tao when using the powers of the heavenly gods? Before Nuwa mended the heavens, they were already a little inferior to Lon Xiaoni in a one-on-one battle. Now that Nuwa's mending of the heavens had progressed to the third stage, they were even more severely restricted, and Lon Xiaoni had become more powerful. As such, they were no match for Lon Xiaoni in a one-on-one battle. However, it wasn't as if they were unprepared. Lanya, Minghe, you can come out now, the heavenly mirror god suddenly said. Immediately afterward, seawater began to surge behind the West Sea Alliance army. A woman with a head of long, blue hair and snowy white skin emerged from the surface of the ocean. An inky black man with long, black hair and crimson eyes also emerged from the surface of the ocean. He was holding an inky black chain in his hands. As soon as they appeared, a terrifying heavenly god aura crushed down upon the West Sea Alliance's army without any reservation, striking all living beings with a sense of asphyxiation. Crap, those are heavenly gods. They're divine heaven stage, heavenly humans. The West Sea Alliance powerful beings' expressions shifted drastically. Lon Xiaoni couldn't even smile anymore. What did they get here? She could sense the entire ocean with her powers of the heavenly gods. So why couldn't she detect these two heavenly gods? Ha ha ha. Surprised, right? A smug smile appeared on the heavenly mirror god's face. My mirrored flower, moon, reflection space can carry divine heaven stage, heavenly humans, and allow them to jump out of any mirror nearby. Seawater is also a type of mirror, so the heavenly mirror god's smile gradually became cruel. Lon Xiaoni, you've been surrounded by the four of us. Come, let's attack together. Capture Lon Xiaoni alive and offer her to the heavenly sea god. Chapter 1987. The sea demon's expressions changed drastically. Their leader Lon had been surrounded again. For such a delicate and beautiful young girl to suddenly be surrounded by four heavenly gods with ill intentions, anyone would be worried, even if this young girl had great power. You dare to attack me? Don't forget that I have people backing me up. Lon Xiaoni harumphed coldly as a frosty expression appeared on her face. Ha ha ha! Are you talking about your boss and Lin? A smug smile appeared on the heavenly mirror god's face, as if everything was under his control. The heavenly sea god has already activated the west sea canopy to isolate the teleportation spell formation. He can't use the teleportation spell formation to reinforce you, so he can only fly here. Do you think he'll be able to save you in time? How could this be? A dazed expression appeared on Lan Xiaoni's face, and her body swayed slightly. She was in disbelief. The heavenly sea god had mobilized himself to kill her? Weren't there rumors circulating in the outside world that the heavenly sea god couldn't participate due to special reasons? A seductive smile appeared on heavenly goddess Lan Ya's face. You should be proud that the heavenly sea god personally came to deal with you. Although the heavenly sea god paid a heavy price, it was all worth it in order for the heavenly god of water's power to develop further. Let's go. The heavenly mirror god roared as it pounced toward Lan Xiaoni. The heavenly liquid god, heavenly goddess Lanya, and heavenly god Ming River sprang into action at the same time before charging toward Lan Xiaoni. Protect Leader Lan. Protect Alliance Leader Lan with our lives. Gu Yu, Yu Fei Yu, Lan Xingyang, and all the other Dao integration stage super mighty figures sprang into action. There's no need to protect me. All you have to do is defeat the enemies before you. Lan Xiaoni dove headfirst into the ocean and swam away from the army. She had already sent a message to Enlin. As long as she could stall for time, even if Enlin were to fly, he would be able to come here. She just had to stall for time. The ocean was her home ground. With a gentle flick of her tail, she could leap hundreds of miles away. Her speed was unbelievably fast. However, the other four heavenly gods were not to be trifled with. The divine halo above the heavenly mirror god's head lit up. True and false switch, illusionary mist mirror. Buzz, the energy instantly spread between heaven and earth. Lan Xiaoni was struck by the power of the explosion, and she completely lost her sense of direction in that instant. She felt as if she had been plunged into a boundless world of mirrors, and everything before her eyes was a repetitive reflection. Humph! You want to bewitch me with a mere mirror illusion? Lan Xiaoni harumphed coldly, and the seawater around her, which was imbued with the paramount power of laws, exploded violently. Boom! Gotcha! The illusion shattered like a mirror falling onto the ground. Lan Xiaoni broke through the heavenly mirror god's attack, but she was also delayed by a second or two. At this moment, the other three heavenly gods' attacks were already upon her. Streaks of scorching platinum liquid that were capable of boiling the entire ocean fell from the sky before enshrouding Lan Xiaoni from all directions. Lan Xiaoni twisted her slender body to evade the oncoming platinum-colored liquid. Lanya and Mingi, the two gods, had already activated 6 of their divine rings as they chased after him. An extremely terrifying and powerful aura was released, causing the surrounding space to freeze. Lanya landed gracefully on the surface of the sea like a butterfly. Her nimble toes lightly tapped on the surface of the sea, and a terrifyingly high temperature crazily eroded the sea from the tip of her toes, causing the sea within a radius of several hundred miles to boil. It's so hot. A pained expression appeared on Lan Xiaoni's face. At this moment, an inky black chain parted the ocean before wrapping itself around Lan Xiaoni's slender waist. Don't go too far. Do you really think I'm a pushover? Lan Xiaoni was enraged, and an extremely dazzling light erupted from the divine halo above her head as she violently swung her body. Boom! A massive whirlpool over 1,000 kilometers in size suddenly appeared in the ocean before rising into the sky to form a devastating tornado. Regardless of whether it was the scorching seawater, the scorching liquid, or the inky black chain imbued with killing intent, all of them were swept away by this unimaginably terrifying tornado. Lanya screamed as she was flung into the sky by the tornado, where her body was sliced countless times by the countless water blades imbued within the tornado. The heavenly liquid god and heavenly god Mingi were also caught up in the shock waves, and they hurtled back in retreat. The heavenly mirror god was a little dumbstruck. Was Lan Xiaoni really that powerful? It had just received the mission to capture Lan Xiaoni alive, and it had thought that the mission would be as safe as a mountain with four heavenly gods working together. However, it didn't think that they would encounter such terrifying resistance. Gu Yu and the others, who were guarding the West Sea Alliance army in the distance, were also extremely astonished at the sight of the gargantuan tornado sweeping up trillions of tons of seawater. It was as if they were witnessing a miracle. If this tornado were to crash down upon the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army, it would be able to crush at least a few million soldiers. Soon, the four heavenly gods around the tornado continued to attack the massive waterspout. Devastating spells imbued with extremely powerful laws of nature bombarded the waterspout relentlessly, instantly transforming the surrounding sea into a land of destruction. The center of their battle was already over 5,000 kilometers away from the two armies, but the shockwaves from their battle constantly destabilized the formations of both armies, thereby sweeping up gargantuan tsunamis that engulfed many armies. This was extremely detrimental to the West Sea Alliance United Army. The seawater suddenly became extremely scorching hot, and the sea monsters were in extreme pain. The gargantuan tsunamis would sweep away some holy martial clan cultivators with insufficient cultivation bases. Fortunately, the Heavenly Human Tribe only had 10 great generals. In contrast, the West Sea Alliance had 5 Dao integration stage super mighty figures, and with the addition of 1 Dao integration stage super mighty figure each from the Holy Martial Clan and True Demon Tribe, they had a total of 7 Dao integration stage super mighty figures, which was more than enough to crush the West Sea Alliance army. Just as an earth-shattering battle was about to erupt in the West Sea, within Yutong City, Enlin instantly flared up with rage upon receiving Lan Xiaoni's call for help. Outrageous! They've deployed 4 heavenly gods to hunt down Lan Xiaoni? Don't they know that I'm protecting Lan Xiaoni? How dare they deploy such a powerful force? Don't blame me for being merciless. I and Lin don't want to fight, but I'm not afraid of an all-out war. And Lin stood up with unquenchable rage burning in his eyes. Xiaolan, I have to go to the West Sea to save Lan Xiaoni. And Lin spoke. Su Xiaolan was also quite concerned upon hearing this, and she also stood up. I'll go with you. If we encounter the Heavenly Sea God, there's no need for that. You stay here and guard against the Heavenly Earth God. And Lin immediately turned her down. With my current power, even if I encounter the Heavenly Sea God, I'll still be able to escape. Su Xiaolan was not an indecisive person, and she immediately nodded. Then make sure to stay safe. And Lin ran to the teleportation spell formation and tried to teleport to the immortal land above water, only to find that the spatial passageway had been cut off by some kind of mighty power. Holy F***CK. And Lin immediately tore open a spatial rift and rushed toward the West Sea. On the West Sea of the Taichu continent, the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army of 20 million had suffered heavy casualties, and their numbers were soon reduced to 15 million. They were also starting to feel like they were going to be completely wiped out if things continued like this. Retreat. Everyone retreat. The Heavenly Human Tribe, Great General yelled. The Heavenly Human Tribe United Army quickly fled toward the Western Heavenly Gate. Charge! Don't let the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army get away. Charge, charge, charge! The West Sea Alliance Army's morale was extremely high as they pursued the enemy. Right at this moment, the battle in the extremely far distance also drew to a conclusion. Lan Xiaoni was on the brink of death, and her entire body was riddled with wounds. Her entire body had been bound by a few indestructible liquid ropes, and the black chains had wound themselves tightly around her snowy white waist, unleashing countless divine symbols to restrict her power. Ming He held onto the other end of the chains and flew into the distance with Lan Xiaoni in tow. The other 3 heavenly gods were all wounded, and they also flew toward the far West Sea. Chapter 1988. After defeating the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army, the West Sea Alliance army chased them for over 5,000 kilometers and killed over 1 million enemy soldiers before returning. However, just as they returned, they discovered to their despair that their alliance leader, Lan Xiaoni, had been captured alive by 4 heavenly gods. This was like a bolt of lightning that struck the entire West Sea Alliance army, and all of them were rooted to the spot, momentarily forgetting to think. Soon, sea monsters began to roar with grief and indignation, offering to save Alliance leader Lan. However, all of these enraged, powerful beings were repressed by Lan Xingyang. They were going to go into the West Sea to save Lan Xiaoni. Wasn't that the same as delivering food to their enemies? Everyone calm down. Don't be nervous. Our alliance leader Lan hasn't perished yet. She's only been captured. Our enemies are 4 heavenly gods, so we won't be able to save her even if we go. Lan Xingyang stood at the center of the army formation as he spoke in a loud voice. His words did not calm all of the powerful beings present, and a mighty figure immediately interjected. Are we just going to sit back and do nothing just because of this? Alliance leader Lan is the symbol of our alliance. If she's gone, what's the point of our alliance? I'm willing to give up everything for a chance to save Alliance leader Lan. That's right. We'll protect Alliance leader Lan, even if it costs us our lives. Charge! We'll just die. Countless experts on the ocean shouted in unison. Lan Xiaoni had built up an extremely high prestige over the past 100 years, not only in the hearts of the Spirit Fish clan, but even in the hearts of the Heavenly Turtle tribe and other sea tribes. She held an extremely important position and had a group of extremely loyal followers. Lan Xingyang was not angered by this. Instead, he was extremely pleased. His daughter was even more powerful than he was, and she was even more popular than he was. As a father, he was naturally extremely pleased. He immediately replied, I'm not saying we won't save Alliance leader Lan. Someone will definitely go and save her. Have you forgotten who her backer is? Someone immediately let loose a cry of surprise upon hearing this. It's sect leader Enlin, heavenly lightning god, lord of transcendence, tamer of divine lightning. All of the West Sea Alliance powerful beings yelled with excitement, and they felt as if they had been enlightened. Alliance leader Lan has so many backers? A sea monster exclaimed. The air suddenly fell silent. All the sea demons stared at that sea demon expressionlessly. That sea demon immediately felt its scalp go numb, and it knew that things were not looking good. At this time, a large number of sea demon powerhouses were already pouncing towards it. The shivering siren was taken away by a group of sirens on suspicion of being a spy. Lan Xingyang continued with a smile. That's right, Alliance leader Lan's backer is Enlin. I believe Enlin is already on his way here. This battle belongs to him, so please trust him. The West Sea Alliance army fell silent upon hearing this. If they were asked to believe someone else, they would probably scoff at it. How could anyone believe in such a big matter? However, when Lan Xingyang asked them to believe in Enlin, they couldn't say anything to object. How many miracles had Enlin created? Enlin's halo was simply too dazzling. In addition to his power, how many people in the entire Taichu continent could match his combat prowess? Needless to say, having Enlin as their backer gave them a sense of security. The West Sea Alliance army began to retreat. Before they even had a chance to return to the immortal land above water, space suddenly split open, and a man in a flowing white robe appeared in the air above the army. Where's Lan Xiaoni? The man asked. It's sect leader Enlin. Sect leader Enlin is finally here. Sect leader Enlin, please go and save Alliance leader Lan. All of the West Sea Alliance soldiers yelled with ecstasy, and some of them even shed tears of joy, as if they had grasped onto their last hope. Enlin had come to their rescue, and he had come so quickly. Don't be in such a hurry. I need the most concise and effective information, Enlin instructed. Lan Xingyang and the other Dao integration stage super mighty figures immediately provided him with a recount of everything they knew. Enlin became more and more enraged as he listened. How dare they? Even the heavenly sea god has come? I was wondering why they couldn't use teleportation spell formations to come here. Who would have thought that they would mobilize for heavenly gods and a paramount heavenly god just to take care of a frail woman? Lan Xingyang wanted to say something, but he hesitated. Lan Xiaoni was not a frail woman. She had almost killed 4 heavenly gods. I've already told you that underling Lan is under my protection. Do you really think I'm joking? And Lin's aura became more and more terrifying, as if he were the wrath of the heavens that threatened to engulf the entire world. The West Sea United Army, which consisted of over 20 million soldiers, was struck by a sense of pressure that was many times more terrifying than that of a normal heavenly god. Sect leader Lin, I'm willing to go with you to save Alliance leader Lan. A Tao integration stage, true demon, super mighty figure stepped forward and stared at Lin with a fervent expression. He was actually very much in awe of this man, and he dreamed of fighting alongside him one day. And Lin looked at this thin and frail, true demon tribe, super mighty figure with mysterious golden vein patterns all over his body. Your demon lord Lingu? The man was extremely flattered, and he immediately replied, That's me. A holy martial clan, super mighty figure with a smooth, streamlined body also stepped forward. A rare hint of respect appeared on his face. I'm also willing to accompany sect leader Lin into the lion's den. Lin was a little surprised to see this super mighty figure. You're one of the 3 founding elders of the Holy Palace of Martial Tao, the true element martial lord? That's right. The Holy Martial Clan super mighty figure nodded, and Lin recalled that he had once fought alongside one of the 3 founding elders of the Holy Palace of Martial Tao, the Chaotic Element Martial Lord. The Chaotic Element Martial Lord was a super mighty figure at the Tao Integration Pinnacle stage, while this true Element Martial Lord was only at the Tao Integration Intermediate stage. Gu Yu, Yu Fiyu, Lan Xingyang, and the others also stepped forward and requested to accompany them. Lin thought about it for a moment. As long as Demon Lord Lingu, the true element martial lord, and Lan Xingyang, the 3 Tao integration stage, super mighty figures would accompany them, and the rest of them would guard the immortal land above water in case the enemy counterattack. In reality, he didn't really need the combat prowess of these 3 super mighty figures. However, as the mighty heavenly lightning god, how could he not have some extravagance? He naturally had to have some underlings cheer him on from the sidelines. This was extravagance, and Lin felt like Demon Lord Lingu, the true element martial lord, and Lan Xingyang were perfect for this role. He glanced at the 3 people behind him to discover that Lan Xingyang was smiling at him. All right, Lan Xingyang wasn't an underling, and he didn't dare to make Lan Xingyang his underling. And Lin looked into the distance. There's no time to lose. Let's rescue Lan Xiaoni right away and let the heavenly human tribe know that they can't bully my underlings. Chapter 1989. Demon Lord Lingu flew through the air with excitement on his face as he looked at the white-robed figure before him. He finally had a chance to fight alongside Lin. Who would have thought that his dream would come true so easily? The true element martial lord was also feeling the same way as Demon Lord Lingu. He was actually an admirer of Lin as well. Not only that, but he had also been thinking about sparring with Lin. However, this thought completely disappeared after the news that Lin was on par with the heavenly earth god. He didn't want to be killed by Lin during a sparring match. Lan Xingyang was also very excited, but his excitement was different from the other 2. Lin had risked his life to save Lan Xiaoni, so their relationship must be quite special. Otherwise, why would he risk his life to save her despite knowing that there were so many heavenly gods and paramount heavenly gods at the Western Heavenly Gate? How far had Lin and Lan Xiaoni progressed? Lan Xingyang felt like there was no one in this world who was worthy of such an exceptional daughter, aside from Lin. Hence, his expression toward Lin became more and more gentle, and he was becoming more and more fond of him. They advanced very quickly, and it didn't take long for them to feel as if heaven and earth had been flipped upside down. Originally, there was an ocean below them, but now there was a clear, mirror-like sky. They could even see white clouds drifting beneath their feet, and the sky above them had become a surging ocean. We've arrived at the end of the West Sea, the heavenly realm. Lan Xingyang spoke with rapt attention. This is the heavenly realm? And Lin surveyed his surroundings with curiosity. This was the first time he had come here. This world was upside down, but he didn't feel like this was going against common sense. Instead, it was imbued with the laws of heaven and earth, forming some sort of cycle with the Taichu continent. At the end of the heavenly realm stood an extremely majestic heavenly gate. In front of the heavenly gate, there were countless heavenly human tribe powerful beings standing guard atop a massive white crystalline ship. It looked like a mobile defensive fortress, but it also looked a little like the legendary ark that carried hope and future with it. And Lin scanned the area with his divine sense and discovered that there were over 60 million heavenly human tribe cultivators up ahead. This was a surprisingly large number of heavenly human tribe cultivators, even more than the army they had mobilized before. Enemy attack. The enemy is coming. Prepare for battle. The highest level of danger. And Lin is here. On a massive, moving battleships in the distance, alarms began to blare, and all of the heavenly human tribe powerful beings fell into battle formations. Several million heavenly human tribe powerful beings flew out of the battleships and unleashed holy light to form a massive formation. I'm here to find Lan Xiaoni. You better hand her over in one piece. Otherwise, don't blame me for flattening the entire Western Heavenly Gate. And Lin's voice was like that of an enraged heavenly god, making heaven and earth tremor violently. All of the heavenly humans were shocked by his words. However, they all looked as if they were unafraid of death. Lan Xiaoni belongs to the heavenly sea god. You're dreaming if you want to save her. You will never know where she is, and you will never be able to save her. We won't tell you even if we die. We don't know anyway. The powerhouses of the heavenly human tribe shouted loudly, as if they were ready to risk it all. Lan Xingyang pulled out a bloodline sensing jade pendant with furrowed brows. I can't sense where Lan Xiaoni is. My connection with her has been cut off by an unimaginable power. The heavenly human tribe great generals continued to roar with mocking laughter. Ha ha ha! The heavenly sea god is here in person. Do you think you have a right to know where Lan Xiaoni is? Dream on. It's not too late for you to run now. Otherwise, none of you will be able to escape once the heavenly sea god returns. Lan Xiaoni is dead for sure. And Lin chuckled coldly upon hearing this. Do you really think I can't find out where you're hiding, underling Lan? You're underestimating me far too much. The heavenly gods and the paramount heavenly gods are not here, so they must be holding some evil ceremony somewhere, right? Seeing as I've already come to the Western Heavenly Gate, I naturally have a way to find that place. His eyes suddenly became colorless and shapeless, and they began to reflect all things between heaven and earth as invisible ripples expanded outward for over 5,000 kilometers. Divine simulation technique, activate. Others might not be able to find it, but Lin possessed an extraordinarily powerful divination spell technique. All of the clues between heaven and earth began to flow into his mind. The trajectories of every single speck of energy in the atmosphere, the trajectories of every single particle of water in the ocean, the trajectories of all things between heaven and earth, and the trajectories of all things in this world. Where underling Lan is located, and Lin suddenly turned toward the northeast, and his shapeless eyes reverted back to black and white. Over there, and Lin and the 3 Dao integration stage super mighty figures behind him flew directly toward the northeast, completely disregarding the heavenly human tribe united army. All of the heavenly human tribe, powerful beings on the massive ship, looked at one another. Could it be that Lin really did discover where Lan Xiaoni is hiding? This was a slap in the face. Should we give chase? Give chase for what? Are we just going to die? With the West Sea heavenly vessel, we still have a chance against Lin. However, our top priority now is to protect the Western Heavenly Gate. Even if Lin finds the heavenly sea god, there's no need to panic. He's definitely no match for the heavenly sea god. A powerful heavenly human tribe great general had spoken, and all of the heavenly human tribe powerful beings had no choice but to obey. The heavenly sea god was invincible, so what did they have to fear? Meanwhile, in the eastern region of the Tai Chu continent, following their last victory, the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army engaged in 3 earth-shattering battles with the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army on the Eastern Front. They fought 1 battle a day, and the entire eastern region had become a massive meat grinder with scorched earth in a radius of hundreds of thousands of kilometers. However, what was worth celebrating was that the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army emerged victorious every single time. This was how the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army progressed. Over 90 million became over 80 million. Over 80 million became over 70 million. Over 70 million became over 60 million. This was how the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army progressed. Over 80 million became over 60 million. Over 60 million became over 40 million. Over 40 million became over 10 million. As their numbers dwindled, their losses also increased drastically. Their current military strength was completely insufficient. The Kingdom of the Nine States United Army was extremely excited, but they were also quite perplexed. Had the Heavenly Human Tribe United Army gone insane? They wouldn't even need to engage in a decisive battle. Just one more day, and the entire Eastern Front would be wiped out. At the Eastern Heavenly Gate, within the Sea of Light, a woman of light held a handful of soil in her hand with a smile. The plan is progressing very smoothly. We've expended over 40 million of the enemy's forces, and the remaining 10 million Heavenly Human Tribe United Army will launch a suicide attack tomorrow. That way, the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army's forces will be halved. The Heavenly Earth God's voice sounded. The West Sea's 1 billion Heavenly Human Tribe United Army is also starting to hatch. In less than a month, the complete Heavenly Human Tribe United Army will appear in the West Sea. When that time comes, what army will be able to stop the 1 billion Heavenly Human Tribe United Army? I'm really looking forward to that day. Those humans must be in despair, right? The woman of light nodded. Whether it's despair or pain, that's not what I care about. It's just that the day when the entire human race will be wiped out is finally upon us. I'm really looking forward to that day. Chapter 1990. On a huge island to the northeast of the Western Heavenly Gate, a spell formation imbued with the paramount nomological laws enshrouded the entire island. From the outside, one could see a blue barrier of light completely enveloping the entire island. The barrier of light appeared very thin, but when one looked directly at it, they felt as if they were looking at a boundless ocean. It was so vast that it struck despair into their hearts. An extremely rich, vital energy surged and circulated around the island. Countless exotic flowers and plants bloomed on the island, and all types of extremely rare spirit beasts roamed about. This island was called Sheeming Island, and it was an extremely rare holy land for cultivation. The land of Sheeming Island was filled with huge white eggs. It looked like an ocean of eggs, and one couldn't even see the end of it. Lan Xiaoni's entire body was bound by liquid ropes, and her slender waist was also bound by black chains. All of her power was suppressed by the countless golden divine symbols on the chains, and she couldn't muster up any strength. Just like that, she was escorted to this island by the 4 heavenly gods. When she saw the boundless number of eggs, her small and exquisite mouth gaped open in shock. This island was actually filled with eggs. Isn't this a little too spectacular? Lan Xiaoni felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. No, my trypophobia is about to act up. What on earth are you guys planning? Why are there so many eggs on this island? Lan Xiaoni asked with a horrified expression. You don't have the right to know about this. This grand plan is destined to shake heaven and earth, and it's destined to stun all living beings on the Tai Chu continent. The Heavenly Mirror God chuckled. The Heavenly Mirror God brought Lan Xiaoni to an extremely intricate, crystal-like, circular spell altar that was embedded with all types of rare gems. In the center of the spell altar, there was a blue water person with no facial features standing with his hands clasped behind his back. Lan Xiaoni's expression shifted. She knew who that water person was. It was one of the 6 paramount heavenly gods, the heavenly sea god. The heavenly sea god turned to look at Lan Xiaoni, and his voice traveled over like the crashing waves of an ocean. We meet again, Alliance Leader Lan. You guys were lucky enough to escape last time, but you won't be so lucky this time. Lan Xiaoni gritted her teeth and glared at the water giant with her beautiful blue eyes. Don't celebrate too early. Big Boss and Lin will be here soon, and then he'll beat all of you into the ground. Ha! The heavenly sea god roared with laughter as a disdainful expression appeared on his face. The West Sea is so vast. How could he possibly know where you are? Even if we take 10,000 steps back, even if he really knows where you are, he won't be able to break my sky-sea formation. Do you know why I chose this place to unleash my magic on you? It's because this place is protected by my most powerful spell formation, the sky-sea grand formation. Even a god of creation wouldn't be able to do anything here. Even though I'm heavily injured and couldn't attack because I forcefully attacked just now, I'm invincible as long as I have this formation. A confident expression appeared on the heavenly sea god's face. The heavenly mirror god, the heavenly liquid god, heavenly goddess Lanya, and heavenly god Dark River all wore proud expressions upon hearing this. Lan Xiaoni was still glaring at the heavenly sea god with an enraged expression. What are you going to do to me? The heavenly sea god chuckled. I bestowed upon you the power of the heavenly gods, but you're using the power of the heavenly gods to oppose me. I don't need the power of disobedience, so I'm going to make you obedient. Heavenly god Dark River tossed Lan Xiaoni toward the center of the spell altar. Lan Xiaoni let loose a muffled groan as she tumbled to the ground. Her curvaceous body struggled with all her might, and an expression of shock and horror gradually appeared on her face as she looked at the water giant making its way toward her. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to me? I'm going to modify your memories so that you'll be completely obedient to me. The heavenly sea god smiled. Lan Xiaoni was in a panic, and her features turned deathly pale. Let go of underling Lan. An extremely enraged voice suddenly sounded from a distance. Lan Xiaoni's body trembled, and she raised her head to look at the sky in the distance. Her beautiful eyes shimmered as she yelled excitedly, Big Boss and Lin, I'm here. And Lin saw the wound-riddled Lan Xiaoni, as well as the heavenly sea god and the other 4 heavenly gods. His face was filled with rage. How dare you bully my underling to such an extent? Demon Lord Ling Gu and the True Element Martial Lord were both extremely excited. We found her. Alliance Leader Lan really is here. Sect Leader and Lin's methods are truly unfathomable. We clearly had no clue where she was, but he was actually able to find this place with such precision. Just as the 2 super mighty beings were exclaiming in admiration, Lan Xingyang heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Lan Xiaoni's vitals weren't injured. He turned his expectant gaze toward Lin again, and Lin's rage soared to the heavens, and a massive aura crashed downward. The heavenly sea spell formation on Shiming Island automatically glowed with a blue light, completely isolating Lin's unparalleled aura. Not even his aura was able to seep into the spell formation. The 4 heavenly gods were initially astonished that Lin had actually found this place. However, they quickly regained their composure. Lin, don't waste your energy. This is the most powerful spell formation set up by our heavenly sea god. There's no way you can break through it. The heavenly mirror god sneered. The heavenly liquid god also yelled in a stern voice. Everyone in the world is saying that you're evenly matched with the heavenly earth god. However, all the heavenly gods in our circle know that the heavenly earth god didn't even use his full strength to fight you. If the heavenly earth god wanted to kill you, it would be a piece of cake for him, and the same goes for the heavenly sea god. You're still trying to provoke the heavenly sea god. Are you courting death? He. Who knows? Lin is only here to put on an act. He's just going to take a stroll around the western heavenly gate. Then he'll go back and tell everyone that he's evenly matched with the heavenly sea god. Heavenly goddess Lan, you covered her mouth and giggled. A look of disdain appeared on the heavenly sea god's face as he looked at Enlin. Enlin, go back. There's no way you can break through my heavenly sea spell formation with your strength. How will I know if I don't try? A golden halo appeared behind Enlin. He activated his 5 elemental body and unleashed a full-force punch toward the spell formation before him. Boom! A terrifying explosion of energy erupted. The power of the 5 elements crashed down in a frenzy, and it was as if even the sky was about to be shattered. A fist indentation appeared on the blue spell formation's protective wall, and it trembled violently like the roar of the ocean. However, despite the roar, it showed no signs of breaking through. Enlin's power seemed to have sunk into the boundless depths of the ocean, and it was completely absorbed by the spell formation. The heavenly sea god clasped his hands behind his back and said calmly, "Don't waste your energy. There's no way you can break through it." At this moment, the true element, Martial Lord, suddenly let out a cry of surprise. "Look at this island. Why are there so many eggs?" Gasp. There are at least 1 billion of these eggs, right? What are they trying to do? Demon Lord Lingu was also astonished. His eyes widened as he stared at the endless number of eggs on the island. Some of them even had cracks on them, and they looked as if they were about to break out of their shells. What did 1 billion mean? If an army could be hatched from these eggs, then it would definitely be a terrifying disaster for the Taichu continent. So you're still plotting something? I definitely won't let you succeed. And Lin happened to discover the heavenly sea god's scheme, and a resolute expression appeared on his face. Today, I and Lin will wipe these eggs off the face of this world, even if I have to fight to the death. Chapter 1991. Enlin was filled with righteous indignation, and his expression became even more resolute. He punched the spell formation again. The heavenly sea spell formation caved in again. It looked like it was going to break, but it didn't. It was as if he were hammering a boundless ocean. He could create countless waves, but he definitely couldn't hammer the entire ocean into oblivion. Let's help out too. Lan Xingyang joined the fray. Demon Lord Ling Gu and True Element Martial Lord also unleashed their most powerful attacks toward the spell formation. However, their attacks were completely ineffective. The heavenly sea god laughed. "Don't waste your energy. My spell formation is imbued with my paramount power of the heavenly gods. How are you going to break it with your measly strength?" Enlin listened to the heavenly sea god's words. Paramount power of the heavenly gods. He recalled how he had injured the heavenly earth god during his battle with the heavenly earth god. With a thought, an extremely pure and domineering heaven-crushing power surged from his fist. Fist of the heavenly Tao. The power of the 5 elements and the power of heaven crushing surged from Enlin's fist at the same time as he punched the spell formation ferociously. The gigantic golden fist was surrounded by 5-colored energy, and it was as if it could destroy the heavens. It roared as it crashed into the heavenly sea spell formation. The terrifying might of the fist instantly caused the ocean within a radius of several thousand kilometers to churn and tremble. Boom! The gigantic golden fist smashed into the blue barrier of light, causing it to cave in. The 4 heavenly gods within the spell formation were all shocked. It was as if the spell formation was about to shatter in the next second, and the terrifying fist was about to land on their bodies. It was an earth-shattering strike. The heavenly gods finally remembered that Enlin might not be as powerful as a paramount heavenly god, but he had killed more heavenly gods than they could count with 2 hands. Heavenly goddess Lan couldn't help but take a step back, and her face paled slightly. Thankfully, even though the spell formation was warped and deformed, it was still able to completely erase the power of Enlin's fist. Enlin couldn't help but falter. Even that didn't work? What the hell was the heavenly sea god doing? Making the island's defenses so sturdy, and then asking me to come and destroy these eggs? Are they crazy? Enlin, even though your attack is effective against the heavenly earth god, it's useless against me. The earth is the earth, and the ocean is the ocean. You don't understand the characteristics of my formation at all. The heavenly sea god chuckled. Enlin picked up on some hints. Were they going to attack the ocean? At this moment, the heavenly mirror god suddenly spoke. Master Ocean, how about we take care of Lan Xiaoni before Enlin breaks in? Enlin and the heavenly sea god's expressions both shifted upon hearing this. Holy F asterisk CK. When did the heavenly mirror god become so sensible? What do you mean by taking advantage of the fact that Enlin hasn't broken in yet? Are you saying that Enlin can still break in? The heavenly sea god's eyes narrowed as he glowered at the heavenly mirror god. The heavenly mirror god shuddered, and he hurriedly lowered his head. That's not what I meant. Don't underestimate my heavenly sea formation. My formation is supported by the entire ocean. No matter how powerful Enlin is, he can't wipe out the entire West Sea. He'll never be able to break through my formation. The heavenly sea god harumphed coldly. Enlin's eyes lit up. He had finally found a breakthrough point. Shiming Island was extremely large, and it covered an area of about 500 kilometers. Meanwhile, the heavenly sea formation covered an area of about 600 kilometers. Since that was the case, the crimson light around the edges of the rotating golden halo behind him suddenly lit up. It was extremely dazzling, and the energy converging at the center suddenly increased explosively. At the same time, a crimson divine halo appeared above his head. Heavenly fire, activate. Come out, holy vermilion flame, demonic star, holy flame, great sun, holy flame, setting moon, holy flame, heavenly void, holy flame, golden dragon, holy flame, mutant blood phoenix, holy flame. Boom! Boundless holy flames burst forth from Enlin's body, incinerating the sky and boiling the ocean. Not only were these 7 holy flames extremely hot, but they also contained extremely profound Tao intent. In fact, they were even fused with the power of the new 5 elements, the power of the heavenly gods, and the power of heaven crushing. Just how terrifying would the power unleashed by the fusion of these 3 holy flames be? Lan Xingyang, Demon Lord Ling Gu, and the true element martial lord were clearly not targeted by these flames. However, they all retreated in fear and unleashed spell techniques to defend themselves. If they were to accidentally come into contact with these flames, their lives would be in grave danger. The monstrous flames expanded rapidly. 50 kilometers, several hundred kilometers, over 500 kilometers. Soon, the holy flames engulfed the entire island and burned furiously. Enlin actually wants to burn the formation? The heavenly liquid god couldn't help but chuckle. Isn't he overthinking things? Does he think that fire is the bane of water? Heavenly goddess Lanya shook her head. This is the water of the heavenly sea god, the paramount being of heaven and earth. How ignorant is he to think that he can use fire to burn the heavenly sea formation? He's just wasting our time. The heavenly mirror god yelled, Heavenly sea god, why don't we contact the heavenly earth god and ask him to come over? Then we'll flank him and kill Enlin. The heavenly sea god's lips twitched as he turned to look at the heavenly mirror god. Why do you have so much to say? If the heavenly earth god comes over, are you going to abandon the central heavenly gate? The heaven-crushing sect is also eyeing us like a tiger watching its prey. Furthermore, this is the ocean. The heavenly earth god doesn't have the ability to instantly teleport, so he won't be able to unleash his full power. Even if he comes, he might not be able to kill Enlin. The heavenly mirror god finally came to a sudden realization, and it wiped the frost off its mirror. Strange. Why is there frost on my mirror? Boom! The earth suddenly tremored violently. The 4 heavenly gods' expressions shifted. Heavenly goddess Lanya was shocked. What happened? No, something's not right. Heavenly God Ming, he looked toward the scorching holy flames outside the formation. Then, a divine light flickered and pierced through the dense holy flames. His pupils contracted abruptly. What Enlin wants to burn isn't our heavenly sea formation, but the heavenly mirror god released its mirror and exclaimed in shock, It's the ocean outside Shiming Island. The heavenly gods were all shocked. They looked toward the heavenly mirror god's large mirror. Looking down from the sky, They could see that the 7 types of terrifying holy flames had already converged to form a vast ocean that stretched for 1,500 kilometers. The extremely scorching flames had already burned a gigantic hole in the ocean outside Sheeming Island. Sheeming Island was like an island that was suspended above a concave ocean. There was no seawater in all directions, including the bottom. Instead, there was a boundless amount of holy flames. The heavenly gods all thought of a possibility. The heavenly sea formation relied on the West Sea to provide energy. Thus, if the West Sea was completely burned away, wouldn't that mean that the energy connection was severed? The heavenly sea formation stretched for over 500 kilometers, and the ocean it covered was incomparably vast. If anyone else said that they could burn away the entire surrounding ocean, they would definitely say that it was wishful thinking. However, Enlil was different. He possessed the power of fire, and he possessed the 7 holy flames. This was indeed the case. The surrounding ocean within a radius of several thousand kilometers had been burned away by the holy flames. Sheeming Island was still being supported by the holy flames. It had gone from being submerged in water to being roasted over fire. Now, let me see how you're going to block my punch. Enlin's voice was as resounding as the might of the heavens. His fist erupted with boundless light as it ruthlessly smashed into the formation. Boom! Heaven and earth shattered. The power of the new 5 elements and the power of heaven crushing erupted in a frenzy. The heavenly sea formation was directly flattened into an exaggerated arc. Crack! A crisp crack reverberated throughout heaven and earth. The heavenly sea formation cracked open. Chapter 1992. The formation that had extended for thousands of miles was flattened by the golden fist and then shattered like a bubble. As the blue light screen exploded, it turned into specks of blue light that filled the sky and disappeared into the void. The formation that was imbued with the power of the oceanic god was indeed very terrifying, but it also had a fatal flaw. It was quite clear that Enlil had found this fatal flaw, and he was able to break through this earth-shattering formation with absolute power. The 4 Empyrean gods stared at the shattered formation with dazed expressions, their faces filled with disbelief. What was going on? Enlil really broke through the heavenly sea god's spell formation. The few Empyrean gods all felt that their faces were burning hot. Previously, they had mocked Enlil for not being able to break through the great formation. How long had it been? Enlil had slapped their faces with a slap. Pooh! The heavenly sea god threw up a mouthful of black liquid, and the divine halo above his head began to weaken at a rate discernible to the naked eye. He had suffered a backlash from the spell formation. Heavenly sea god. Bad news. The heavenly sea god has suffered a backlash from the formation. Quick, protect the heavenly sea god. All of the heavenly gods surrounded the heavenly sea god. Heavenly goddess Lan Ya's expression changed drastically. The heavenly sea god is already severely wounded, so he can't fight. Now that he's suffering from the backlash of the spell formation, he really can't continue fighting. It's too dangerous. The heavenly sea god looked at heavenly goddess Lanya approvingly. This is what a good subordinate should be like. When the heavenly gods heard this, they all chimed in. We can retreat to the western heavenly gate first. Yes, the strategic weapons of the West Sea's heavenly ship are there, and the light of the heavenly gate is shining there. It's our home ground, and it's the safest place. The Empyrean deities all wanted to retreat. The heavenly sea god gritted his teeth, and a stubborn expression appeared on his face as he shook his head with great difficulty. No, I can't just leave like this. There are still 1 billion heavenly human tribe eggs here. These are the trump cards of our heavenly gods. I can't let them be destroyed in my hands. When the other Empyrean gods heard this, their hearts ached, and some even had red eyes. But, heavenly sea god, your body. No, heavenly sea god, you can't continue fighting. Let us protect these eggs. We are willing to fight with our lives. The heavenly sea god shook his head. No, you guys are no match for Enlil. Let me. Lan Xiaoni didn't even know what to say at the sight of all the heavenly gods being separated by life and death. It seemed that no matter what they said or how they slandered him, Lin was still a terrifying enemy in their eyes. They just didn't want to admit it before. She looked up at the white-robed figure in the sky, and her clear and pure eyes were filled with passion and yearning. Her boss Lin was indeed an omnipotent hero. Heavenly Sea God, I'm coming to take your life right now. And Lin's five-elemental power surged as he activated his body of the war god to the extreme. And Lin, I'll kill you. The Heavenly Sea God also rose into the air. Fist of the Heavenly Path. And Lin's fist once again released a world-shattering aura. Universe, see true martial fist. The Heavenly Sea God's fist was deep blue and boundless. Bam! The two fists collided. Heaven and earth were instantly transformed into a battle of golden and blue energies. This was the first time Lin had attacked the Heavenly Sea God. He felt as if his fist had plunged into the deep sea. No matter how much he struggled, he was unable to break free or change the power before him. It was too deep, too vast. It was everywhere. It could nurture everything, and it could also destroy everything. Lin felt that although his power was very strong and could break through the power of the ocean, he didn't expect that most of it would be like a clay ox entering the ocean. It was as if he was about to be completely engulfed. Lin's heart jolted. He had wanted to use this opportunity to give the Heavenly Sea God a good beating, but he didn't expect that he would still be at a disadvantage. Plot. The Heavenly Sea God suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood at Lin. Lin was astonished. Was my punch really that powerful? The Heavenly Sea God flew back like a cannonball and landed on Shiming Island. Heavenly Sea God! Heavenly Sea God! The heavenly gods all cried out in surprise and rushed over to catch the Heavenly Sea God. They were all touched by the Heavenly Sea God's stubborn resistance to protect the 1 billion heavenly human eggs. However, even though they were touched, they still carried the Heavenly Sea God and ran toward the western heavenly gate without any hesitation. In their hearts, the battle and the 1 billion heavenly human eggs didn't matter. The most important thing now was to protect the Heavenly Sea God. The Heavenly Sea God was the future. Nothing else mattered. Don't even think about escaping. Lin hurriedly chased after the Heavenly Sea God. He clenched his fist, and heaven and earth suddenly transformed into a domain under his control. Heaven's sealing technique. Crack, crack, crack. The heavenly gods all felt as if they were being separated from their original world by some kind of power. Lin rushed over and stared at the Heavenly Sea God with a scorching gaze. He really didn't want to let the Heavenly Sea God escape just like that. Seeing the severely wounded Heavenly Sea God, a bold idea suddenly appeared in his mind. Killing the Heavenly Sea God was a little unrealistic. However, if he were to bite off a piece of flesh from its body, Lin became excited. The Heavenly Sea God suddenly spat out a mouthful of liquid upon seeing Lin pouncing toward it. This liquid was like the sharpest sword in the world, and it instantly pierced through Lin's domain. Run! The Heavenly Mirror God yelled as it erected a mirror. The heavenly gods carried the Heavenly Sea God and jumped in the mirror without any hesitation. Before Lin could rush over, the mirror had already disappeared. All the heavenly gods had fled, leaving behind only an empty island. Lan Xiaoni, Lan Xingyang, Demon Lord Ling Gu, and the True Element Martial Lord were all dumbstruck. Astonishment. Lin had severely wounded the Heavenly Sea God with a single punch and scared off the 4 heavenly gods. Although they knew that the Heavenly Sea God had been severely wounded, it was still unheard of for Lin to be able to scare off the Heavenly Sea God and the other heavenly gods. Demon Lord Ling Gu's dream was to fight alongside Lin. However, before he could even attack the heavenly gods, Lin had already taken care of all the battles. This made him feel despair. Sect leader Lin's combat prowess is indeed astonishing. Demon Lord Ling Gu sighed with emotion. Since he couldn't fight alongside Lin, he could only become a spectator. Lin landed on the island, and his heart ached at the sight of Lan Xiaoni, who was riddled with wounds. Big Boss Lin. Lan Xiaoni stared at the man before her with teary eyes, and Lin slashed apart the bindings on Lan Xiaoni's body. Lan Xiaoni finally couldn't hold on any longer, and her body went limp, and she was about to collapse to the ground. At this moment, Lin immediately rushed forward and wrapped his arms around her soft and supple body. He patted her smooth back and consoled her in a gentle voice. "It's all right now. Thank you for your hard work." "Big Boss Lin, thank you for your hard work as well," Lan Xiaoni said in a gentle voice as she hugged the man before her. "You were the one who suffered the most. You were even injured." And Lin heaved a forlorn sigh. "It's all right, I asked for all of this. It was a ruse to injure myself to gain Lin's confidence. At least it was all worth it." Lan Xiaoni felt the warmth of Lin's body, and there was a hint of nostalgia in her voice. We're all great." And Lin smiled. Lan Xingyang, Demon Lord Ling Gu, and the True Element Martial Lord were all a loss as they listened to their conversation. They felt like they couldn't keep up with their conversation. They hurt you, so it's time for them to pay a painful price. A cold smile appeared on Lin's face as he looked at the 1 billion heavenly human eggs in the distance. Chapter 1993. And Lin looked at the boundless expanse of heavenly human eggs on the island, and he really couldn't imagine just how terrifying the army of eggs would be once they hatched. However, all of this was going to be ended by him. He was going to nip this in the bud. Fire. And Lin waved a hand. Rumble. The great solar sacred fire that was as scorching as the sun was like a tsunami that shook the heavens, sweeping towards the 1 billion eggs on the island. Then, like a carpet, it spread out. Anything that came into contact with those eggs was instantly burned red, or even completely burnt into charcoal. A peculiar charred aroma began to waft through the air. It smells so good. Lan Xiaoni sniffed, and her eyes suddenly lit up. Big Boss Lin, these eggs smell so good. And Lin had naturally also smelled this fragrant aroma. This was a rich, high-energy aroma. Demon Lord Ling Gu was even more direct. "These eggs have all been roasted, right? With such a dense aura, if we eat all these eggs, will we become even more powerful?" And Lin was shocked. "These are heavenly human eggs. Isn't that even better?" Demon Lord Ling Gu waved his thin arms through the air as his crimson eyes glowed. "Our true demon tribe has also swallowed heavenly human tribe warriors before, and they really didn't taste very good. As for the eggs, they smell quite good after being roasted, and they should also be very delicious." And Lin was a little speechless. "If you want to eat them, then go eat them. Don't get a stomachache." Demon Lord Ling Gu pounced toward the roasted eggs like a hungry wolf, and his body instantly transformed into a true demon god over 100,000 feet tall. Countless tentacles swept up the eggs in the holy flames before placing them into his cavernous mouth. He chewed on several thousand eggs at a time in an extremely violent manner. Roar. Sect leader Lin, can you lower the temperature? It's so hot. Demon Lord Ling Gu wailed with anguish. He discovered that some of his tentacles had been incinerated by the terrifying holy flames before they could even reach the eggs. And Lin shook his head with a smile. "I can't. I'm afraid the eggs won't be cooked if the temperature is too low." Demon Lord Ling Gu thought about it for a moment and realized that this was indeed the case. He forcibly endured the scorching heat and quickly stuffed the heavenly human egg into his mouth. Delicious, delicious. Oh, it's so hot. It's scalding. This super powerful being of the true demon tribe was stuck between happiness and pain. It felt like it was playing a game of taking chestnuts from the fire within Lin. Although the fire was scary, the chestnuts were really delicious. Lan Xiaoni couldn't help but swallow upon seeing this. She cautiously glanced at Lin. Seeing that Lin also had no desire to eat the egg, she hesitated for a moment and finally decided not to eat it. The True Element Martial Saint was completely indifferent, calmly looking at the scene in front of him. Only the glutton, Demon Lord Ling Gu, quickly ate several million heavenly human tribe eggs. His entire body was riddled with wounds, But the energy fluctuations within his body were also increasing at an alarming rate. Enlin's great sun, sacred fire, quickly spread across the entire Sheeming Island, melting the ground and roasting the 1 billion heavenly human eggs. A heavenly human tribe member wouldn't emerge from a cooked egg, right? This was the process of growing from childish to mature. Enlin nodded with a smile as he looked at the cooked eggs in front of him. The paramount heavenly god's plan had finally been foiled by him. Demon Lord Ling Gu suddenly howled in anguish. A pained expression appeared on his face, and he collapsed to the ground. His gigantic body struggled madly. Enlin's expression shifted slightly. What's going on? Is he suffering from indigestion? That's possible. Demon Lord Ling Gu is eating faster and faster. He just ate 100 million eggs. Lan Xiaoni stroked her chin and nodded. Enlin, what's in this guy's stomach? I think the important thing is that he just ate a black-shelled egg, the true element martial saint said. A black-shelled egg? Enlin's expression shifted as he looked at the eggs that were still being roasted in the holy fire. Out of the 900 million heavenly human eggs, there were only 15 black-shelled eggs left. This could be said to be 1 in 100 million. Enlin recalled the scene he had seen at the heavenly human holy land, and his expression shifted once again. If I'm not mistaken, these black-shelled eggs are hatched from divine heaven stage heavenly humans. Lan Xiaoni and the true element martial saint's expressions both shifted upon hearing this. Didn't this mean that if the egg hatched, there would be 16 heavenly god-level existences? Just thinking about it made their skin crawl. No wonder the paramount heavenly gods viewed these heavenly humans as their trump cards. Not only did they crush them with numbers, but their quality was also terrifying. So you're saying that Demon Lord Ling Gu had indigestion because he swallowed a heavenly god? Lan Xiaoni exclaimed in shock. This heavenly god egg isn't still alive, is it? The true element martial saint frowned. Enlin shook his head upon hearing this. I've sensed the life force of these eggs. They're all dead. It really did have indigestion. A heavenly god is so bad *SS. Even after death, the density of energy contained within them is unimaginable. Demon Lord Ling Gu most likely wouldn't be able to withstand the energy density within these eggs. Enlin waved a hand as he spoke, and the remaining 15 black eggs were swept toward him with holy flames before carefully inspecting them. These black eggs were oval in shape and were about the size of a human. They were clearly pointed at the bottom, but they maintained a peculiar balance as they stood upright on the ground. Enlin didn't have any special feelings toward the other eggs, but he had a special feeling toward these black eggs. He couldn't describe what this feeling was, but he was instinctively attracted to them. Big Boss Enlin, do you want to eat these eggs? Lan Xiaoni's eyes lit up. Enlin shook his head before extending a hand toward one of the black eggs. Whoosh, a peculiar ripple instantly surged through his entire body. Enlin's entire body felt extremely comfortable. Ding dong. Enlin's body shuddered. Holy F***, what's that sound? After thinking for a moment, he finally came to his senses. So he had a system. He immediately opened the system in his mind to find that a string of text was flashing incessantly. Detected that host has come into contact with the essential powers of the heavenly gods. Now assigning the following special mission, frowny face, absorb the essential powers of the heavenly gods within all of the heavenly human eggs. Mission success, perfect and enhance the divine Tao of darkness. Reward, karma dual tribulation weapon. Mission failure, 2 eggs of host will be erased. Mission time limit, 2 hours. Note, this mission cannot be rejected. Exceeding the time limit will result in failure. Enlin suddenly felt a chill run down his spine upon seeing this mission. This system's mission failure penalty sure was full of malicious intent. The truth was finally revealed to Dabai. The black egg before him was indeed different. It contained the essential powers of the heavenly gods. No wonder heavenly gods were able to use the powers of the divine halos, and 9 of them at once. It turned out that they contained the essential powers of the heavenly gods within their bodies. And Lin didn't know what these essential powers of the heavenly gods would mean to him, but they were definitely extremely beneficial. He took a deep breath. He placed his hand on the heavenly human egg and activated his engulfment spell technique. He didn't need to use any special techniques or tricks. The purest energy within the black egg, as well as the paramount power of the heavenly gods, flowed through his arm and into his heart. Chapter 1994. And Lin could feel a terrifying power surging within his body. A very special power of the heavenly gods even flowed directly into his heart. This power didn't actually flow into his heart. Instead, it flowed into a black dot within his heart. That was actually his divine Tao of darkness. And Lin could feel his divine Tao of darkness becoming more and more powerful. This was a very special feeling, as if his darkness had become purer and more engulfing. Lan Xiaoni let loose a cry of surprise as she watched the egg and Lin was stroking disintegrate at a rate discernible to the naked eye. My God, is this a brand new way of eating eggs? And Lin retorted, Don't spout nonsense. I'm not eating the egg. How could I possibly eat the egg? I'm absorbing the egg's energy. Do you understand? Lan Xiaoni nodded blankly. Does it taste good? It does. And Lin replied with an honest expression. The black egg's energy and essence all flowed into Lin's body and were completely absorbed. The only things that turned into powder were the non-nutritious residue on the egg. Soon, the black egg was completely absorbed, and Lin heaved a heavy sigh as his eyes glowed with boundless light. He knew that he had become a lot more powerful. The power of the heavenly gods was strengthening his divine Tao of darkness, and the nourishing essence was strengthening his body. To him, this was absolutely a great fortune. And Lin looked at the remaining 14 black eggs and began to absorb them one by one. With each egg he absorbed, and Lin became a little more powerful. He knew that each black egg represented the essence of a heavenly god. Absorbing a black egg was equivalent to absorbing a heavenly god into his body. As such, the increase in power he received was extremely terrifying. 2, 3, 4, 5, and Lin's aura became more and more terrifying. Even the true element Martial Lord and Lan Xiaoni could sense this, and they couldn't help but stare at the man who was sucking the eggs relentlessly. Demon Lord Ling Gu looked like he was about to die from the pain of eating a single black egg. However, Lin was completely fine after eating one egg after another. On top of that, he was also quickly becoming more powerful. The two of them were worlds apart. Burp. When Lin finished the 14th one, he burped. He looked at the last black egg. As long as he ate this one, his mission would be completed. In reality, it didn't really matter whether he completed the mission or not. After all, he had already become more powerful. He was so bad *SS that he felt like he could beat up the severely wounded heavenly sea god. Of course, this was just how he felt. *Chi. And Lin began to devour the last black egg. With a shake of his arms, he had become stronger again. Come on, system, give me a reward. And Lin shouted in his heart. However, everything was so quiet, and Lin noticed that the system didn't ding-dong. He looked at the system in shock and found that the quest was incomplete. And Lin's eyes widened, and his divine sense burst forth to scan the hundreds of millions of heavenly human eggs on the island. Indeed, there were no more black eggs. He had already completed the quest and absorbed all the black eggs. What's going on? Why isn't the mission completed yet? Could it be that the system is retarded? And Lin suddenly panicked. The quest reward wasn't that important. However, if he failed the mission, the 2 eggs on his body would be erased. This was something that he definitely couldn't bear. Lan Xiaoni turned to Lin with a curious expression. What's wrong, Big Boss Lin? What happened? Where are my eggs? Where are my eggs? And Lin's face was drenched in cold sweat as he spoke in a panicked voice. The time limit for the mission was 2 hours, and he didn't have much time left. If he failed the mission, your eggs? Lan Xiaoni blinked her limpid eyes, and she casually glanced down at Lin's crotch as a deep blush appeared on her face. Didn't you say that you'll replenish whatever you eat? That can't be right. Did you eat all your eggs? What did you say? And Lin stared at Lan Xiaoni with a blank expression before suddenly realizing what Lan Xiaoni was implying, and he almost threw up a mouthful of blood. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the black eggs. However, it appeared that Lan Xiaoni was right. If things continued like this, he really was going to eat all of his eggs until he ran out of eggs. Oh, so that's not what you're talking about. Lan Xiaoni's blush deepened, and she was so ashamed that she almost wanted to crawl into the ocean. It was over. When did she become so filthy? What was she going to do if Big Boss and Lin found out about this? Was her reputation as the West Sea Alliance leader going to crumble in front of Big Boss and Lin? And Lin didn't have the time to worry about Lan Xiaoni. He was still looking for eggs. Didn't you eat all the black eggs? The true element martial lord couldn't help but ask, if there really are other eggs, could it be that the heavenly sea god snuck them away? And Lin's body shuddered. If the heavenly sea god really did take them away, then wouldn't the mission be hellish? He had thought that this was a free mission, but it turned out to be a hellish mission? No, I have to calm down. The heavenly sea god had said that he was going to destroy all of the eggs. He didn't like disobedient heavenly human tribe cultivators, so it was extremely unlikely that he would keep the eggs with him. He must have missed something with this in mind. And Lin suddenly turned toward Demon Lord Ling Gu, who was still struggling on the ground. It's been so long. Why is Demon Lord Ling Gu still rolling around on the ground? Is he still suffering from indigestion? And Lin's lips twitched. Could it be? Demon Lord Ling Gu felt like he was about to die. The energy within his body felt like it was about to explode. The amount of energy he absorbed was far less than the amount of energy released by the eggs in his body, and the energy he absorbed was severely out of balance. As such, his body would collapse, and he would die. Right at this moment, a white-robed figure appeared before him. Sect leader and Lin. Demon Lord Ling Gu's expression faltered slightly at the sight of the man flying toward him. Mr. Ling Gu, I'm here to help you. And Lin looked at him with an extremely urgent expression, as if he couldn't afford to waste even a single second. Demon Lord Ling Gu's heart was filled with warmth. Tears welled up in his eyes upon seeing sect leader and Lin, whom he revered immensely, being so concerned for him. Whoosh! Demon Lord Ling Gu's massive body was flung into the sky by Lin. And Lin leaped behind Demon Lord Ling Gu with his fists clenched tightly. Wait. Sect leader and Lin, could it be that you're trying to... Demon Lord Ling Gu's expression shifted drastically as he recalled the terrifying fist Lin had unleashed. As if to confirm his suspicions, Lin's fist began to glow with a golden light. No, wait, I'll do it myself. Demon Lord Ling Gu was completely petrified, and he yelled in a loud voice. And Lin's fist was powerful enough to make the heavenly sea god vomit blood. If it landed on his body, he would definitely die. And Lin acted as if he didn't hear him, and his fist crashed into Demon Lord Ling Gu's back. Mr. Ling Gu, I'm here to save you. Mountain quaking fist. Boom. His fist was like 1,000,000,000 tons of force, and it instantly caved in Demon Lord Ling Gu's back. Demon Lord Ling Gu was struck by an excruciating pain as his stomach churned. A sense of impending death surged through his entire body, and he was on the verge of tears. A large pile of undigested eggs, mixed with green stomach acid, was spat out like a waterfall, big and small pearls falling onto a jade plate. This was an extremely spectacular scene. Lan Xiaoni's eyes widened, and she silently pinched her nose. Found it. And Lin's eyes lit up, and he waved a hand, upon which a black egg flew toward him. The eggs hadn't been digested yet, so he had saved them. Chapter 1995. And Lin picked up the black egg and smiled at the pained Demon Lord Ling Gu. Fellow Cultivator Ling Gu, I've successfully removed the source of your pain. There's no need to thank me. Demon Lord Ling Gu clutched his back as tears streamed down his face from the pain. He had removed the source of pain from the black egg, but his fist had become the new source of pain. And Lin ignored Demon Lord Lingu. At this moment, the egg was the most valuable thing for him to protect. He washed the black egg with water and even used the divine liquid of creation cultivation method to wash the egg completely clean. Only then did he touch the shell of the egg and absorb it to his heart's content. It didn't take long for Enlin to completely absorb the black egg. His power had increased once again. Ding dong! The system finally chimed in. Congratulations, host, on mission completion. Mission completion reward is now bestowed. Enlin was instantly very excited. Everything produced by the system was definitely of the highest quality. This could be seen from the frying pan and the black brick. Now, the system was giving him a karmic dual tribulation weapon. Just from a name alone, one could tell that this was an extremely badass weapon. A dazzling light began to flash. The weapon of Enlin's dreams began to appear in his hands. His pupils began to contract slowly, and finally his eyes widened. His face was full of shock and disbelief, and even the hand holding the weapon began to tremble. There was only one thought echoing in his mind. Holy F***CK. What the F***CK is this thing? There was a Y-shaped black slingshot in his hand. On the two ends of the slingshot, there were two egg-like balls, one white and one red, connected by thin energy threads. So this was the karmic dual tribulation weapon? There was no divine light, no phenomenon, no exquisite workmanship. There was nothing. It felt like this was a shoddy toy. It was even more shoddy than the frying pan and the black brick. And Lin swung the Y-shaped slingshot in his hand, and the two egg-shaped balls on both ends of the slingshot shook as well. This gave Lin a strange feeling. He kept feeling that this thing looked like something. When he placed the Y-shaped slingshot horizontally, looked at the pitch-black slingshot, and then flicked the two eggs under the slingshot, he finally knew what this thing looked like. F***CK. And Lin couldn't help but curse. A deep blush appeared on Lan Xiaoni's face. Big Boss and Lin, what was that thing? It looked so weird, and Lin's chest tightened. Looking at this girl's expression, she must have also discovered the uniqueness of this weapon. You're still pretending not to know? Your expression has already betrayed you. This thing is called the Karma Dual Calamity Weapon. And Lin said with a solemn expression. What kind of name is that? Lan Xiaoni stared at Lin with shock in her eyes, as if to say that he was lying to her. Let alone Lan Xiaoni, even Lin himself didn't believe that this thing could have such a name. He felt like calling it the Armstrong Cyclone Jet Armstrong Cannon was a more accurate description. Everything produced by the system had to be of the highest quality. This was in Lin's undying belief. He felt like even though this thing was a little ugly, it was definitely going to be quite useful. After all, this was a reward for sacrificing 16 heavenly gods to the heavens. But how was he supposed to use it? There were no instructions here. And Lin thought about it for a moment before a white light flashed through his eyes, and he activated his divine inspection technique. Karma Dual Calamity Weapon, Paramount Karma Weapon. The red egg is the leftover egg tribulation, while the white egg is the wronged egg tribulation. Strike the enemy's body with the wronged egg tribulation first, then strike the enemy's body with the leftover egg tribulation within 1 minute to trigger the karma tribulation of doom, which will deal a lethal blow to the enemy. And Lin, what was going on with this explanation that seemed like a game? Wronged egg tribulation? Leftover egg tribulation? Don't think I haven't had my fair share of bad blood on Earth. And Lin was on the verge of vomiting. Was this thing really useful? He had absolute faith in the system's products, but he was starting to have doubts now. He had to find something to test its power on, but there were no enemies here. What if his little friend was doomed? He was about to die from frustration. So be it. I'll put it away for now. And Lin stowed this strange object into his storage ring. Lan Xiaoni turned toward him with a curious expression. Big Boss and Lin, what's wrong? Your expression doesn't look quite right. My balls are hurting. And Lin replied. Demon Lord Ling Gu's anguished cries subsided, and he finally caught his breath. He crawled up from the ground and expressed his gratitude to Enlin before continuing to eat his eggs. In no time, all 1 billion eggs had been devoured by demon Lord Lingu. His six-pack abdomen had become a single pack, and it was as if he had been pregnant for many years. This was even after the eggs had been compressed into an extremely concentrated form of energy. If they hadn't been compressed, his body would have exploded from the eggs. Now, it's time to put an end to this operation. And Lin leaped into the air, and a ring appeared behind him. At the same time, scorching holy flames burst forth from his fists. His arms bulged crimson, and a terrifying amount of energy accumulated. 5 elemental body, 8 times flame, Qilin arms. Boom! The flaming fist fell from the sky like a meteorite and crashed heavily into Shiming Island. The terrifying power of the fist smashed the gigantic island, which spanned over 1,000 kilometers, into pieces. Then, it was incinerated into nothingness by the boundless flames. The seawater began to churn and swallow the last remnants of the island. From now on, the Wessie would forever have one less island. And Lin left with Lan Xiaoni, Lan Xingyang, Demon Lord Lingu, and the true element Martial Lord. At the eastern heavenly gate, within a sea of light, a small lake beside the heavenly light goddess began to shimmer. She walked to the side of the small lake, and a smile appeared on her face. "See, what's wrong? Why did you suddenly contact us?" The heavenly earth god's voice also traveled over. "See, is there some good news for you to contact us at the same time? Could it be that the 1 billion heavenly human tribe members have already hatched? Hee, is the human race's most desperate moment finally coming?" The heavenly light goddess also spoke. "There are only 10 million heavenly human tribe members left on the Eastern Front. We're just waiting for your 1 billion heavenly human tribe members to join the battle. Then, we'll launch a decisive battle." Light, earth, the heavenly sea god suddenly choked with sobs. "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. It's all my fault." A sense of foreboding welled up in the hearts of the heavenly light goddess and the heavenly earth god. "What happened?" the heavenly light goddess asked. "Speak slowly," the heavenly earth god said in a low voice. The heavenly sea god's voice traveled over. "The 1 billion heavenly human eggs are gone." Boom! The heavenly sea god's voice was like a clap of thunder exploding beside the heavenly light goddess and the heavenly earth god's ears. Both of them fell silent. "Do you know what you're saying?" "See." The heavenly light goddess's words were imbued with unimaginable rage. The surrounding sea of light became extremely dazzling, as if it could explode at any moment. "I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I was careless and allowed Lin to take advantage of me. That's right. Those 1 billion heavenly human eggs were all destroyed by Lin." Chapter 1996. The heavenly light goddess and the heavenly earth god were both dumbstruck. Lin? It was Lin again. F***CK. This Lin. Does he really think we can't deal with him? The heavenly earth god was enraged, and his voice became extremely gloomy. "Our trump card is gone, just like that." The heavenly light goddess was still reeling from the blow she had just received. She had expended 100 million heavenly human tribe united army to reduce the kingdom of the 9 states united army to only 10 million. She had wanted to exhaust more of the kingdom of the 9 states united army so that the 1 billion heavenly human tribe united army could deal a fatal blow to the human race. But now, she was told that the 1 billion heavenly human tribe united army was gone. The heavenly sea god was also grief-stricken, and he recounted everything that had happened to him, including how he had tried to tamper with Lan Xiaoni's memories in order to better control her power of water, as well as how Lin had miraculously found him and how he had cleverly broken through his formation. The heavenly light goddess and the heavenly earth god were both shocked to hear this. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? However, it was so real that they couldn't refute it. The heavenly sea god wept as he begged the heavenly earth god and the heavenly light goddess to punish him severely. Otherwise, he would feel very guilty. The two heavenly gods were both furious and resentful toward the heavenly sea god. Punish him? He looked like he was about to King die. If they punished him, would they have to kill him? They hated the heavenly sea god for dropping the ball, at such a crucial moment. Perhaps it was because they were too angry that they didn't even have the energy to curse at him. We'll talk about this later. Protect the western heavenly gate first. The heavenly light goddess instructed. The heavenly light goddess and the heavenly earth god cut off their communication. Was this the end? No, this was only the beginning. On this day, extremely terrifying light suddenly erupted in the eastern region of the Taichu continent. It was as if a series of extreme explosions were taking place. Near the Taichu continent's white nectar sea, the earth was trembling violently as terrifying energy erupted forth. It was as if a primordial ferocious beast were roaring again and again, threatening to completely shatter the earth and shatter it. This gave the Kingdom of the Nine States United Army quite a fright. All of them were on their highest alert and prepared for battle. However, this situation only lasted for 2 hours before it faded away. The heavenly human tribe didn't attack, and the paramount heavenly gods didn't pounce toward him. Everything returned to normal. Only the allied army looked at each other in bewilderment. They had no idea what was going on. Light, the ocean is not my territory. Do you know what's going on? The heavenly earth god's voice suddenly sounded. The heavenly light goddess spoke in a dejected voice. I've already used my light techniques to deduce over 10,000 times. Although it's very coincidental, I didn't miss anything. Lan Xiaoni really was putting up a desperate struggle. The heavenly sea god really was trying to tamper with her memories, and Lin's divination techniques were simply too powerful, which was why the heavenly sea god was discovered. Furthermore, the heavenly sea god fought Lin to the death in the end. For the heavenly sea god, it has also encountered an extremely dangerous and frustrating situation. The heavenly sea god's injuries have really worsened. Even though paramount heavenly gods weren't omnipotent and omniscient, they were still able to gather a lot of information if they focused their power on a particular event. The heavenly earth god heaved a forlorn sigh upon hearing this. Why are we so unlucky? Could it be that the heavenly Tao is robbing us of our fortune? We forcefully invaded the Taichu continent to exterminate all living beings, which is an act of defiance of the heavens. It's not impossible that the heavenly Tao is robbing us of our fortune. The heavenly light goddess heaved a forlorn sigh. Then what do we do now? The heavenly earth god was also quite dejected. He had initially planned to use the heavenly human tribe army of 1 billion to crush the humans into despair. But now, he was the one who had tasted despair. And Lin, that D** Ned and Lin, the heavenly earth god felt like his face was burning with embarrassment. Even his calm and tranquil heart was beginning to waver from Lin's actions. We still have one more trump card, but if we use it now, our chances of success won't be as high as before. However, we have no choice but to make this choice. The heavenly light goddess voice was tinged with a hint of exasperation and concern. The heavenly earth god felt a little more confident at the mention of this trump card. Let's find a good day to launch the final battle. At the center of the white nectar sea, at the pinnacle of the heavenly divine tree, the peerlessly beautiful heavenly life goddess and the heavenly heaven god stood on a tree branch in silence. They had also heard the news from the heavenly sea god, and their emotions were extremely complex. You, the heavenly life goddess' lips parted slightly. Have you figured anything out? Everything the heavenly sea god said is true. Furthermore, even in the final moments, Lin was still trying to kill the heavenly sea god with everything he had. The heavenly heaven god's deductions were more in-depth than the heavenly light goddesses, but the conclusion he had reached was still the same. This is going to be quite troublesome. The heavenly life goddess' brows furrowed slightly. Not only is this a heavy blow to light and earth, but it's also going to have a very heavy impact on our plan. We're reaping what we sow, right? The heavenly heaven god spoke in an indifferent voice. A wry smile appeared on the heavenly life goddess' face. We shouldn't have given that heavenly poison god to Lin. That's right. It was exactly because they had given Lin the heavenly poison god that Lin had become so powerful. If Lin's divine body hadn't reached the phenomenal success stage, How would he have been able to destroy all of the 1 billion heavenly human eggs? Just as all of the paramount heavenly gods were feeling extremely distressed. The immortal land above water was in an uproar. It's giving birth. Demon Lord Lingu is giving birth. My God, he's screaming so loudly. Hang in there. Hang in there. All of the West Sea United Army members stared at Demon Lord Lingu with fervent expressions, and some of them were even yelling at the top of their lungs. Oh! The true demon's massive body, over 100,000 feet in size, thrashed about in the ocean, and its bulging stomach grew larger and larger, as if something were about to come out. All of the West Sea Alliance members knew that not only had Lin saved their Alliance leader Lon, but he had also foiled the paramount heavenly god's earth-shattering plan, so they were all extremely excited. They naturally knew that Demon Lord Ling Gu had swallowed all of the 1 billion eggs. 1 billion eggs. Each egg was as tall as a person. What kind of concept would it be to swallow 1 billion eggs into one stomach? No one had even tried to swallow that many eggs, let alone such a huge egg. Demon Lord Ling Gu's heroic feat earned him the title of Egg Eater Demon Lord. To be able to eat 1 billion celestial eggs at once. Let me ask you, are you afraid? Some of the West Sea Alliance members cheered him on, while others cheered him on. Finally, amid Demon Lord Ling Gu's blood-curdling roar, boom! A resounding boom erupted. It's broken. It's broken. It's finally out. The Egg Eater Demon Lord has made a breakthrough. The power of the divine Tao began to spread throughout heaven and earth. Phenomena began to appear. On this day, Demon Lord Ling Gu progressed to the Tao integration pinnacle stage after eating an egg.